tell me. Hello, I'd like to call to order the October 26th meeting for Parks and Rec Commission. It is 6:34, and I would like to welcome everybody to the meeting. This is a teleconference meeting with commission members, city staff, and members of the public participating remotely. The other commissioners that are present include Commissioner Peter Joshua, Commissioner Mehran Bunyagit. Who else is here? Commissioner Peter Diepenbrock, Commissioner Aurora Brosnan, and Commissioner Kelsey Terrio. Staff present includes Library and Community Services Director Sean Reinhardt, Acting Assistant Community Director Rondell Howard, Library and Community Services Supervisor Tricia Mullen, and Ashley, are you here?
I'm here.
Oh, and that's Ashley. Okay, Ashley, sorry. And Management Analyst Ashley Walker. Rondell is also the staff liaison for the commission. Ashley will be helping facilitate the meeting. Ashley, will you please take a moment and provide instructions to the commission and members of the public in attendance on how the meeting will proceed?
Thanks, Mark. Members of the commission should keep their cameras on and their microphones off until they are recognized by the chair. Commissioners should raise their hand to indicate that they wish to speak. If a member of the public wishes to speak during a public comment period, please notify staff by using the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen. If you're dialing in, you can use *9 to engage the raise hand function. Members of the public attending remotely who wish to speak, please take a moment to make sure your first and last name are updated on Zoom, or you may provide your name and spelling as you're called to speak. Public comment will be heard in the order received and is limited to 3 minutes in length. If there are a large number of public commenters, the time limit may be adjusted by the chair in order to allow everyone a chance to comment. When your turn for public comment has arrived, staff will unmute you. Any comments that were emailed prior to the commission meeting have been provided to all commissioners via email.
Under public comment, the public may address the commission on any subject not listed for a limit of 3 minutes. Please clearly state your name and address your address or political jurisdiction in which you live. The commission cannot act on items not listed on the agenda. Therefore, the commission cannot respond to non-agenda items brought up under public comment other than to provide general information. Ashley, do we have any public comments?
At this time, if you'd like to make a public comment on any item not on the agenda, please notify the staff liaison by using the raise hand feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you're dialing in, you can use *9 to engage the raise hand function. And looks like at this time we have no raised hands.
Thanks, Ashley. We begin tonight with a study session then on El Capitan track ride, zip line, the hours of operation at the Neyland Park All Abilities Playground. Library and Community Services Director Sean Reinhardt and Assistant Community Services Director Rondell Howard will present at this time.
Thank you, Chair Brian, and good evening, commissioners. We'll just do a quick run through of the staff report that accompanied this study session item, and then I think we'd just like to turn to the public comments and discussion by commissioners. So this item is a study session on the El Capitan track ride, hours of operation. That's more commonly known as the zip line. It's located in the Neyland Park All Abilities Playground. The recommendation here for this study session item tonight is that the Parks and Recreation Commission, we'll refer to as the PRC, review and comment on the hours of operation of the zip line at the All Abilities Playground. And as an advisory body to the City Council, the PRC makes recommendations and serves as a forum for public input, commentary, and discussion related to recreation programs and facilities in Menlo Park, such as the zip line. A little bit of background, the Parks and Recreation Facilities Master Plan adopted first of all, developed with a lot of work by the Parks and Recreation Commission, but then adopted by the City Council in 2019, includes the statement from the guiding goals related to universal design, to incorporate universal design in the development of parks and facilities, playgrounds, to reduce barriers that limit use by people of all ages and physical, perceptual, and cognitive abilities. Also in the background, the City Council adopted updates to the City of Menlo Park cost recovery policy last year, including the statement of guiding principles related to equity, inclusion, social justice, fair and equitable distribution of public services and amenities for all members of the community. Then turning to the playground itself, as you all I'm sure know, the Nealon Park All Abilities Playground replaced the aging playground that was there and opened in December of 2019. The goal of that playground was to provide a shared space that includes people with disabilities, especially children, in everyday recreational activities, and give them the same opportunities to participate in every aspect of play to the best of their abilities. It is Menlo Park's only all abilities playground, and it advances and is consistent with the guiding goals in the Parks and Rec Facilities Master Plan mentioned earlier. But after the zip line, the El Capitan track ride, also known as the zip line, went into service in December of 2019. Residents whose homes are immediately adjacent to the park began lodging complaints about the sound generated by the ride as it slides along the tracks. Out of an abundance of caution, city staff closed the zip line at that time for safety inspections and to investigate the extent and cause of the sound, including working with the equipment manufacturer. A lot of inspections and testing concluded that the ride was in safe, correct working order. The sound generated by the ride is a result of the equipment's normal functioning. But before we could act upon those findings, the COVID-19 pandemic happened, shutdown occurred, impacted everything in a substantial way for quite some time, much longer than we at first anticipated. As we all know, we've all lived through it. When the city playgrounds were reopened in October of that year, 2020, the zip line remained immobilized because we just hadn't had the capacity to complete a study of potential options to address the nearby residents' concern about the sound. Those staff capacity limitations required us to really prioritize and focus on the areas of greatest urgency and need. And so the zipline study, kind of was a little lower on the priority list at that time because of the national, state, and local emergency. However, finally kind of emerged from that this summer, particularly with the approval of vaccines for very young children in June. So we're able to turn our attention back to this item. So turning to the track ride itself, this is a key feature of the All Abilities Playground. I think we all know how it works. The description is here for reference, and it's also in the staff report. A couple things about this ride. It is one of the rides that allows riders of all abilities to simultaneously play together on the same ride, which is a key element of the goal of the project. And the unique and distinguishing feature of this ride compared to some others is the sense of movement that it provides for the riders. It's something that this ride alone, maybe the swings to some extent, but this ride is kind of unique in that regard. I think, as you all know, the zip line is located in this location within the playground. Just for reference, Middle Avenue is kind of running along here. This is the playground, obviously. The tennis courts are off here to the left, and there are some homes pretty close by here, just on the other side of the park boundary. So just turning to the recent trial effort to reduce the chances of the zip line being used overnight when the park is closed, city staff worked with the zip line manufacturer to install a lock on the tracks to immobilize the seats in a way that did not compromise the safety or the warranty. But the procedure is kind of onerous. It requires a city staff person to go out twice per day to manually lock and unlock the seats. We don't have spare capacity to take on this additional task. So it was sort of done as part of kind of some regular sort of routines that were already happening on weekdays. And so that resulted in the trial basis being focused on, weekday kind of during the day unlocking periods, because that's just when we had staff capacity available to kind of do this kind of staff intensive procedure. But started that on August 29th to evaluate the effectiveness of the lock and of the trial period. Unfortunately, it was found that applying significant weight and force on the suspended seat can shear the LOX cable that was initially put on. According to the manufacturer, a more substantial lock, it's not advisable to install one due to safety concerns. The equipment's just kind of not designed for that. I believe staff has replaced the lock, but it still would be prone to that kind of shearing, and is continuing to immobilize the seat. On weekdays, however, it's an unsustainable practice, so we just want to kind of put that out there with the current staff capacity. However, staff does plan to continue the current trial period on the current schedule, pending some additional evaluation and study, including the study session tonight. We very much want to hear from the Parks and Recreation Commission, as well as any members of the public who are here to comment tonight. And we'll make a determination regarding next steps by November 30. So I'll just wrap up here. Here's some key points for discussion. We're hoping that the commissioners can weigh in about. This would be the purpose and the goals of the All Abilities Playground, the unique and distinguishing features of this particular ride, neighboring residents' concerns about the sound generated by the ride, the guiding goals in the Parks and Recreation Facilities Master Plan, which resulted in the playground being constructed and that ride being included, the cost recovery policy statement on equity, inclusion, and belonging, desired hours in operation for the zip line and the level of community access, and taking into consideration the staff's limited capacity to sustain the current manual locking and unlocking procedures. So that is the presentation. We're happy to answer any questions you may have. I know that in the gallery are some additional staff who are available if more technical questions come up. But for now, I'll stop and turn it back to you, Chair Bryman. Thank you. And Mark, I think you may be speaking, but you're muted.
Sorry, thank you. Thanks, Sean. Ashley, are there any public comments on this particular agenda item at this time?
At this time, if you would like to make a public comment on this item, please notify the staff by using the raise hand feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you're dialing in, you can use the *9 to engage the raise hand function. And we do have a few hands up. So Paul Kick will be speaking first, and we'll set a 3-minute timer.
Thanks, Ashley.
Paul, if you'd like to unmute yourself, they can hear you.
My name is Paul Kick. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Can hear
Paul.
you.
My name is Paul Kick. I live at 535 Maury Drive, where my backyard is a 4-foot tall picket fence that abuts Nealon Park, about 25 feet from the northeast part of the playground. Nealon Park has been my neighbor for the last 17 years, but only since the playground remodel has it become a loud and unruly neighbor. Now, let me be clear, the mowing of lawns on Monday or Tuesday mornings, the leaf blowers at least once a week, Little League or adult softball on weekends or Wednesday nights until after 9 p.m., tennis or pickleball being played until the lights go out at 10 p.m. every night, weekend soccer, flag football groups, birthday parties, including bouncy houses and their loud generators, and numerous piñatas are all expected by those of us who are park neighbors. Even the 5+ years of amplified Elsa from the movie Frozen singing at birthday parties was totally accepted. Cleaning up the trash blown into my fence by those birthday parties, or the homeless people sleeping in the park benches, or the outdoor gym classes in the elementary school competitions, or even the barking dogs running loose or chasing the balls on the main lawn and then peeing on my fence, are all part of the park package. But I attended every one of those playground design meetings with lots of other neighbors, and every one of us stressed that whatever toys or rides were to be installed must be quiet. Those toys need to be quiet because even though the park closes at dusk as per city ordinance, many people don't follow that rule. This is especially true for teenagers on Friday and Saturday nights who come to hang out in the playground after 11 p.m. The loud rides being misused by teens and young adults during the night is not an acceptable condition to those of us who live close and try to go to sleep. Yes, we call the police, but they're often take care of more serious crime, which means no one shows up. This has left many of us feeling frustrated and unheard about a situation which has become unbearable. The zip line is loud during the day. Boy, we understand that noise, but at night it cannot be allowed to operate. Recently, there's been a trial period with the zip line supposedly open during the weekday hours. In the last 6 weeks, there have been numerous occasions where the ride was not locked or the lock was broken and the zip line was loud all during the night. The spinning ride has also been closed because of use by teens late at night, and that is yet to reopen, but I'm concerned for what will happen when it does. When this commission and the city council wanted to make Nealon Playground a destination, I wonder if they realize that this park is now a destination for lots of people who don't pay the taxes for its upkeep, or for many who don't respect the rules and ordinances, or even consider those of us who live nearby. It is my request that the committee keep the zip line locked after dusk, make sure that they consider teens abusing the spinner when it is repaired, and request the city council speak with the chief of police about responding to noise complaints in the park after hours. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Paul. Is that it, Ashley? Any other comments?
We do have a few more. Sorry,
Thanks.
my timer's going off. Next is Jennifer Johnson.
Hello.
Hi, Jennifer, we can hear you.
Hi. At the time that Nealon Park was developed, I was the chair of the Parks and Recreation Commission. I too was at every single outreach meeting. All of the neighbors in that area were heavily solicited to attend those meetings. The plans for every single piece of equipment in the park were clearly laid out. Neighbors were asked about their opinions about every single piece of equipment. I clearly remember a neighbor from Maury Road asking what a piece of equipment was. I explained that it was a musical element and was told, oh, heavens no, we can't have anything that has noise. You must eliminate that element. That element was eliminated. However, when one buys a home that backs onto a playground, noise is inherent. The fact that teenagers are misusing equipment in the evenings is not a reason to deprive children of that equipment during the day. That equipment was chosen for specific reasons. The Parks and Rec Commission and the city should not be in a position of shutting that equipment down and preventing taxpayers from benefiting from the equipment that they paid for. The city needs to make sure that the police actually respond to those calls. This is an enforcement issue. This is not a Parks and Rec issue. These neighbors have been complaining about the zip line as well as this spinning element, and they have even complained about the passive swing that makes no noise. They are complaining about every single element that is across the fence line. No playground is quiet. The whole point of the All Abilities Playground was for all people to be able to play. It was not designed as a destination playground. It was designed as a playground for all people in Menlo Park, and yes, others will come. But there are All Abilities playgrounds in other areas. We do not have huge influxes of people from other areas coming to this park. And even if we do, people in Menlo Park go to their parks as well. This is not something that the Menlo Park Parks and Rec Commission should be withholding from the taxpayers and the children in our community. This is an enforcement issue and should not be addressed in this way. And I am shocked that the neighbors continue in this way when they had every opportunity to make these comments before things were put into place in this playground.
Thank you, Jennifer.
A couple more commenters here. Christine Bell, I hope I pronounced that. Oh, I'm sorry, Christine Ball.
Unmute. Thank you. Hi, so I'm Christine Ball. I have owned my home at 555 Maury Drive since 2003. So for almost 20 years, I have lived in harmony with Nealon Park. The person that just spoke, I think I was the one that I went to every single one of these city outreach meetings, and I was the one that made the comment on the musical instrument. I actually didn't say you didn't not to do it, but if you could at least put it on the far side of the park away from the homes was my comment. I don't think any of us neighbors understood the noise that the zip line would make when we were reviewing the plans. It was not explained to us in advance. The improvements at the park have made it a destination park for better or for worse. I think children playing is a happy sound. That's not my issue. It has increased the level of noise for the day for all the reasons that Paul listed, plus the fact that because of COVID, there's now exercise classes that are being done like behind our fences and stuff like that. But it's this zip line in the middle of the night when the teenagers are using it, you can hear them. That is driving me absolutely crazy. I'm not complaining about a swing. I'm not complaining about the spinning thing. It's the zip line noise. I agree that there's an enforcement issue as well with the police. They don't seem to care. They probably have more important things to do, but you know, where the neighbors, also taxpayers, are the ones that are suffering. So my request is that since locking the zip line at night is not feasible per the committee's own review that they did in this meeting, is that the committee consider another piece of equipment to replace the zip line, whether it's that might be quieter or simply those picnic tables are packed every weekend. It's a nice shady spot. Put some picnic tables in there that will get used for everybody. But my proposed solution is that that gets taken out and replaced with something else that might meet the objectives of the parks you know, committee of having it all inclusive, but a much quieter piece of equipment. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you. And one more comment. Lenore Bankoff.
Hello, my name is Lenore Banchoff. I have lived up against the park since 2007. I am very grateful to be there. I think it enhances my life, and that has done so for my 6 granddaughters who grew up going there. But I also respect the fact that we are a row of neighbors, all of who also pay taxes, who have encountered this problem. And when I went to the outreach meetings, all of them, I do not recall that this zip line was described in any way. I do remember the issue about musical instruments and the sound issue. I think that there has never been any sign in the park saying what age group this park is for. I don't think a sign would probably help because the teenagers who use the equipment may not respect that sign anyway. I feel like the zip line should have been located in another place. The fenced area of the park perhaps expanded so that it was more in the center of the park or even to the other side where there are not houses. The spinning apparatus has been replaced about 3 times. And since I walk in the park almost every day, I kind of kept track of that. And I think that I saw fathers and mothers on that game, not just teenagers. I did see older children, and I guess this is about the 3rd time it's been stopped. So whatever they've tried to do to repair it and strengthen it hasn't worked. as Paul says, there's a lot of sounds coming from the park, and he has experienced some things that are beyond sound. But this is a situation where I think the residents surrounding the park also need to be respected. I would suggest that it be removed, something more appropriate be put in place which serves people of all capabilities, with some age restrictions which are not discussed at all. Thank you for this opportunity to speak on this important community and local issue.
Thank you, Lenore. Any other comments? Ashley?
That looks like it for now. Some people still have their hand up from before, but I believe we have called on all of them. Yes. All right.
I suppose now then we should open the floor to commissioners who may have any insights or comments on this item. Anybody?
Would it be helpful if I put the discussion points back on the screen?
Yes. May I suggest that I did have a chance to look at Paul's email before the meeting, and I appreciate that he spoke as well. I think that, as he suggested, if you're living next to the park, you've got to imagine that there's going to be some noise. And he seems to recognize that, as do, quite frankly, all the other neighbors. With this specific issue, the locks that have been put in place either don't work, or we don't have staff that can stay late enough to put those locks in place, or both. Is there any chance that we can limit access to that very ride, if you will, without limiting access during the day to the kids of all sort of capacities and such, so as to not to defeat the purpose of it, but to keep people off of it at night, so that we don't even need to lock the thing. They just can't get in. Is there any way to do that?
I guess I'll field that. I think it's a question. I mean, like anything is possible. It's a question of like, what would be the cost, and what would it entail? So to, sort of like physically limit access to, I don't know if like maybe what's envisioned would be like a fence around it or something like that. There's a cost associated with that, and maybe impacts to how the playground is used, because then you'd have this element that's kind of separated out. And we've already kind of talked about another possible, an attempted solution, which was the locking, but not ideal. Another aspect is, which was raised a couple of times, which is to focus in on enforcement. Like, so when this unauthorized overnight behavior occurs, to target that when it happens. And clearly, efforts on that haven't borne fruit yet, but so when you think about like 3 options like that, there's definitely varying levels of cost and effort there. So I hope that helps answer your question. Those are the few alternatives that kind of come to mind.
I guess, Sean, my concern is this, that when it comes to enforcement, right, I'm not going to go there and drag teenagers off of the thing. I don't think anybody on Parks and Rec has the ability to do that, or should have to do that. The police clearly are not responding. As everybody has said, they have bigger and more important things to do, which I get. Quite frankly, I'd probably prefer them to do more important things, right? So who's going to enforce that? And whose responsibility is that? to enforce that. In terms of the lock itself, right? If the weight of the ride shears the lock and the manufacturer says, don't use a bigger, stronger lock because it compromises the thing, then neither of those are solutions. We could either replace it with another ride, but as Jennifer suggested, we went through this process, right? We interviewed the public, we showed them all the things, and this is what was chosen after all that was said and done. It would seem to me, and I guess another neighbor suggested that we move the facility somewhere so that the noise isn't as bad. And then there's a cost to that as well. There's always going to be a cost. So if we just buckle in and say, all right, just lose it, forget it, it doesn't work, or too bad neighbors, or okay neighbors, you no longer have to pay your taxes, or whatever the solution is, none of that seems to make any sense. So I don't know, that's just my feeling about it.
Mark, I don't know if you're able to see, but I just wanted to let you know in case you can't, that a couple of the commissioners have their hands up.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay.
Well, no, there's
it's a-
something on the screen now and I can't, oh, you know why? Because I don't have, I'm sorry, Commissioner Brosnan, please.
Thank you, Commissioner Bryman. I was curious if the city looked at other options or if it was sort of an all or nothing thought process with having, either someone coming in from the staff and locking, which doesn't work anyway, but, somehow disabling the zip line in the evenings. Or if they've considered having specific hours, maybe limited hours that the zip line would be available. For example, on Saturdays and Sundays only between the hours of, 8 and 12, something like that. Just pulling some numbers out to sort of reduce the demand on staff, but also allow it to be used by the public, but just in a limited capacity, and therefore sort of keeping it available to people of all abilities. And secondly, if we've looked at other alternatives to the type of lock that's currently been tested and isn't working, and did we talk to the manufacturer to find out if there are any other solutions that would, work around the problem that we're currently having in the sharing. And then thirdly, I think that we do need to consider every resident of the city. And if this is such, if it's making it, really challenging for the people who live there to enjoy the peace and quiet of their homes, then, as a community, I think we, have a duty to consider their experience with this. And I understand that there was a lot of study, and public always has the ability and the opportunity to give feedback and input, but sometimes we don't know certain sensory outcomes of things when they're put, when they're become a reality versus when they're being discussed in a meeting and looked at on the plan. So I don't think that it sounds like the people who have commented from the community who live nearby were involved, but didn't really feel the impact of the level of discomfort that the sound would bring, at the time. So those are my questions and comments. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Brosnan. Commissioner Punyagit?
Can I kind of fill the question from Commissioner Brosnan in regards to the first two questions that she had? And so thank you again for the questions. Really appreciate it. As far as just options and for staffing, we've definitely we definitely did our due diligence as far as trying to figure out some staffing issues. We've done the numbers, and we worked with multiple divisions in order to see what was the best time to be allotted to have the this particular zip line open to the public. And so we've been working extensively in the background to try to figure that part out. So that's something that we have done, and we've been doing different schedules and working with the staff that we have. As we all know, staff is always needed. It's never at full capacity, but as we work towards this, the one thing we want to do is make sure that the residents and everybody in the community have access. And so we have worked on that as far as getting staff out there at different times. And right now, since we opened up this pilot program again, we have done that. And right now the times are Monday through Friday. We have staff that's coming in and unlocking it in the morning, locking it at night. As mentioned, it has been broken before. And that's going to roll into your second question as far as options with our manufacturer. We've been down that road with those guys. They've come out, they've done inspections of sorts, and it's not too much that we can actually do to the actual equipment itself. And so they've worked with us to come up with this locking system that we have. The thing with the locking system is that sometimes the cables that we have used or that are made for the system, the temporary system that we put up, sometimes it's not strong enough or holds the weight to keep people from breaking into it, or people trying to use it and breaking it that way. So we've done our due diligence in the background as far as staffing and looking at different ways that we can use different locking mechanisms to better support so that the locks are not broken or not vandalized at times. So I just wanted to fill those two questions. Sorry, Mark.
Thanks, Rondell. Commissioner Bunyagit.
Yes, thank you. I just had two thoughts. I really appreciate hearing the perspective from our various residents to take into account what different neighbors and residents are feeling. Curious if we or the department is able to seek out information from other cities that have a similar playground structure with zip lines. I'm sure they're also nearby, aligned with other neighbors to see if they have others, maybe solutions that they've been able to, if they've had to lock their zip line, for example, if they've been able to find a different solution, just if we're able to reach out to those other cities, other playground areas. And then the second one seems like, the main issue is also the noise is not during the daytime, it's the nighttime enforcement. Wondering if we can partner with, as much as I know that the police department will be during evening times working on other various calls, and wondering if we can have the conversation and partner to see if I'm assuming they do rounds around the neighborhoods throughout the evening. If we know, for example, talking to the neighbors around Neyland Park, if, noises seem to come out during 11 p.m., if that could be between the hours of 10:30, 11:30, that's a rotating schedule for the police department when they're doing their rounds. If that's, I'm not a police officer. I know they're going to be going to doing other more important things, but if it's part of their routine at night to go around the community, if that could be a thought to have that area be during the hours of where the noise complaints usually occur.
Thanks, Maren. Commissioner Terrio.
Thank you. Yeah, so I guess I have like a question and a comment. So I guess my question is, like if the noise concerns can't be kind of reconciled with like an hours for the zip line to be open, what is like, are there next steps for like, will this be like removed from the park? Will it be replaced? Because I guess my comment is, if this is kind of the one all abilities playground in Menlo Park, I guess my concern is like removing this feature and not replacing it with another feature that is accessible, especially to like children with disabilities who may not be able to just easily use features at another park, for example, that they are, you know, having access to all of these features that are here at Nealon Park.
Thanks, Commissioner. I'm sorry, Commissioner Joshua.
After listening to what the neighbors are saying around the park, I think they are very cognizant of the fact that they live next to a park and there's going to be noise, and they've lived there for long enough to understand what the consequences of that are. But after a certain time in the evening, I don't think it's really acceptable to expect them to be tolerating levels of noise which don't allow them to sleep or have a, you know, just a normal evening. Normal quiet evening. And I would think that if we can't fix the problem of not allowing the zip line to be used in the evening, it can't be used. It's not reasonable to expect people to tolerate that level of noise in the evening. So until such a time that the city can actually come up with a solution that effectively stops it from being used in the evening, I don't think it should be used. It's really out of respect for the people that live around the park. You can't expect them to continue to put up with that level of noise at odd hours in the evening. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Commissioner Diepenbrock.
Yes, so Rondell, I just had a couple of questions. Little bit confused, just want to make sure I'm clear on exactly what we're dealing with here. So it says number 7, limited staff capacity to sustain manual locking and unlocking procedures. But by what you just said, Rondell, we've been able to have staff go and lock it. You said in the evening. I guess my first question is what time does that mean when you say evening? What time is that? And second, so does that mean that we have solved that part of the problem, that we can have staff show up, but the real problem is that the lock is being broken into? I just want to make sure we are narrowing down to exactly what the issue is in solving this problem.
No, thanks for asking that, but it's a combination of both, right? And so when we say staff are locking the apparatus at night, when I say that, it's more like early evening, so between 6:30 and 7, and then it's being unlocked in the morning. And so when the limited capacity we have with staff, it's because we don't have enough staff to do it at different times, and so we're only allowed to do it during the week. And I know a lot of times people have been asking for weekends. I know they've been asking to leave it unlocked later, but due to capacity of the staff that we have, we don't have that luxury of being out there and locking it as often, or that would benefit more playtime on the actual playground.
But if they're locking it at 7, so the problem is that the lock's not working and people are getting in there later and using this? Exactly.
And so the lock that we're allowed to use is more of a cable type locking system.
Yeah.
And over time, if you keep jarring it and keep messing with it, it'll eventually break. And that's kind of what happens. And so there's no other way that we can sustain that, because that's kind of the biggest at capacity we can go when it comes to the locking system. So when we say it's being broken, that's how it is, because it's being jarred over time, and if eventually breaks. But then again, as we're saying with staff, our staffing hours and what we have as far as manpower, we don't have the capacity to do it at weekends and things of that nature are later in the.
Yeah, no, I got that. But to answer these concerned neighbors, so isn't right now our answer to them, hey, we agree, we're trying to lock it
Most
at
definitely.
7 o'clock, but we just don't have the ability to do that right now. Is that our answer to them right now? Or
So,
what?
so let me weigh in there because I think that you're zeroing in on a pretty good distinction here. So this is a trial phase of staff doing this manual locking and unlocking, which is not something that we had staff for before, nor have staff for now. But during the trial period, we're able to kind of rearrange some things and do the best we can to, experiment with this and see if it would be effective. And then I think what Mr. Howard's kind of getting at here is that even that limited ability trial has proven not to be entirely effective because the lock fails. And so there's the two things, which is, if this is the solution that we ultimately go with, like, okay, well, let's just keep doing the lock and expand the lock, we would need additional staffing because we're just sort of making it work for a trial period with current staffing. So I think I'm hoping that kind of helps clarify the distinction, because I think it's a good one, and I'm glad you brought it up.
Rondell, let me just be clear. Oh, I'm sorry, Aurora, go ahead. No?
Sorry, I had to find my picture and unmute it. I also want to reiterate what Commissioner Joshua said, which is, I don't think we can expect the people that, that we have to expect that we respect the people who live nearby. And I also wanted to clarify one thing with Rondell. Is this issue of locking it, is it ultimately a safety issue? Does it wear down on the equipment? And if it does that become a potential liability? So that's sort of an aside question, but if this is something that, can't be addressed by, without things that are limiting, like hiring new staff or, actually finding a solution that doesn't get, that's not broken in the evenings, because we can't expect the police to come around at every moment that, that there's a noise violation. Are there other all abilities playground equipment features that could be replaced there, which seems like it might be a good solution if there's no solution to the zip line? There for the cost that it would for the cost of hiring new staff to sort of manage the zip line, could there be a cost assessment done to look at diverting whatever that potential cost would be, or if there's funding for that, to switching it to something else that also caters to all abilities? I'm just looking at inclusive playground equipment right now, and there are swings and merry-go-round chairs and different types of swings, and a plethora of equipment that caters to people with all of it, that need access to all abilities equipment that could be good options. That's all.
Yeah, if I could weigh in on that, that's exactly the kind of input we're seeking, and all the input so far has been really great. I think the purpose of this study session isn't to necessarily arrive at, a decision point tonight, but because all of these other efforts have been attempted and have had limited success, we thought it was important to bring it to the commission and get some guidance here. And some suggestions. So, if the focus is on replacement, or is the focus going to be on enforcement? Is the focus going to be on sort of the manual locking and unlocking? These are for the remainder of this trial period through November 30. These are the elements that we want to assess, and we definitely value your input on it. But I think I heard one specific question about the equipment and does the lock contribute to more wear and tear or compromise the safety of it? And I do know that the Public Works Supervisor, Bill Halleck, is in the attendee gallery right now. And maybe I can, yeah, and he's raising his hand to indicate that he's available to speak to that. So maybe Ashley, you could bring him in and he could talk about that a little bit.
Hello, everybody. It's Bill Halleck. I'm the Park Supervisor and Senior Project Manager for the city. I was responsible for helping build it, and I respect the neighbors' concerns and also Jennifer's concerns. There's several things that I heard, and I want to kind of give the commissioner some background information. We're restricted by safety zones, so that we're not able to limit access or put like a fence or any additional piece of something in the playground without getting into those those zones. So I know that Commissioner Bryman mentioned how could we limit access. It seemed like a reasonable thing, but we can't put any more fencing in there. We do know that the locks are narrow, and they eventually will cause so they could cause some damage to the swings. It hasn't yet. We find that there's braking that goes on kind of on the weekends more than not. We've had some preliminary discussions with the manufacturer with Game Time, and we did have some preliminary discussions about what other options we could do there. If we don't go with the zip line, whatever options we do have to kind of stay in that safety zone, that area. And there could be repurposing of that, removing the swings and putting some sort of climbing ability thing there. Let's see. The age restrictions. Somebody had mentioned that this playground is for all ages. So, and the great thing is that all ages do interact. So there's really not that large of age restrictions for different abilities to play together. Let's see. The teenagers, their weight doesn't damage the equipment. We did stop the spinner because there was a malfunction on the equipment, and we're repairing that. There are no alternatives to locking it. Let's see. Again, there's the possibility of repurposing it, but those are just initial discussions. And I think that pretty much I think that goes through some of the things that I had written down. And that's it, Sean.
Hey, Bill, thanks for the insights. Peter?
Yeah, so I just think, obviously we've had a chance to talk about it and express, some thoughts on it. I just think it's important, Mark, because this issue is affecting these residents, tonight and tomorrow night. And I understand the trial period goes till the end of November. I just think it's very important that we list, exactly what the steps are that are going to be taken. I mean, is it, I don't know, maybe Sean, you can answer this. Is it even in a possibility to contact local enforcement and say, hey, like, Commissioner said, is it possible to make your rounds at this time by the par? I mean, what are the steps that are going to be taken? And then also just, again, lots of issues, like you said, Sean, but like the cost of locking it, nightly versus the cost of replacing it with another piece of equipment. There's just a lot of questions that need to be answered here in the next 5 weeks.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner, for those observations. I think that kind of sums up a good portion of the discussion fairly well. Regarding next steps, I think, the approach that I would suggest would be to start with what are the simplest, most efficient solutions first and sort of proceed through them, as they, either succeed or not. And so, the enforcement issue does sort of present itself as probably one of the potentially low-hanging fruit here is to focus on that. And I think we heard a number of comments, both from members of the public and commissioners about, maybe enforcement, some more attention can be paid there. It doesn't look like there has been a lot of activity on that, and maybe a little bit of additional activity would reveal, hey, is that effective or not? So, in my thinking, based on the conversation this evening, it seems like that would be an appropriate next step. And, potentially even within like existing rounds that are already happening. And then, if we get into discussions about more substantial blocking and unlocking procedures or replacing equipment, then it does become more complex. But I would say let's start with the simplest first, which is, on the enforcement issue. And there could be a few different ways to get at that. I think, the obvious go-to is the police department, but there could be some other alternatives to kind of achieve the same effect. And so we're going to look into those. So I hope that's helpful.
I don't see any other hands. Are there any other commissioners that want to weigh in on this?
Well, again, it's just my thing is just feedback and just not letting it go, and maybe setting up some sort of communication where these residents can communicate whether the enforcement's working in the next, I don't know, week or whatever, just something, so it's just being addressed and not just going by the wayside. So
Yeah, I would agree. It would seem to me, as Sean had suggested, that that's got to be the lowest hanging fruit. If we can put a little bit of pressure on whoever is going to try to enforce that, that's going to go, we can find out pretty quickly if that's going to work.
right.
Other than that, if we don't have staff, and even if we did have staff, the locks don't work, as Jennifer suggested, they need access. Everybody needs access during the day. If we find locks that work, how can we get them locked at 9 o'clock as opposed to 6 o'clock or whatever? But it would seem to me that, as Sean has suggested, that the first thing we should be doing is putting a little bit of pressure on the enforcement issue. Other than that, we'll go to the next step, but it would seem to me that if there is no other solution beyond that, then maybe we should find something that does work.
But when you say go to the next step, I guess my question mark is, does the next step have to occur after we find out about the enforcement issue? Or are we right now, I think Rondell, you said, I thought maybe you addressed this, that right now we are still in the process of trying to figure out a better way to lock it. And I mean, is that something we're working on currently, or have we given up on that part of it, or what?
No, so with that, in that regards, what it is, as Sean mentioned earlier, is that it's just at a limited capacity, right? And it's a trial run. This is not a finalized way of doing this because it takes staff away from other obligations. And so it's kind of a trial run, and we have until November 30th to still and try to figure this out. So that next step is maybe enforcement. And if that's what it is, then I think we should move towards that. But as far as staffing, it's a trial run as well.
But out of respect to the neighbors, I think that we need to get on this as soon as possible and not just let it float for another 6 weeks and say, well, kind of worked, kind of didn't work,
Yeah,
right?
I do want to be clear, we are intending to continue to immobilize the zip line on all evenings and throughout the day on weekends as the current plan. And if the lock is broken, then we will replace it, pending some additional study. Mr. Halleck earlier mentioned, working with the manufacturer to see if there's more that can be done just mechanically here. So certainly we'll continue those efforts. But as far as like impacts to the neighbors, I think as noted earlier this evening, the intent is to continue with the current approach through November 30th, which is the date of the next Parks and Recreation Commission meeting.
And Sean, the only reason that it's locked on the weekends is because we don't have staff, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's a park. I'm not sure that it should be locked on the weekends. But anyway. Okay, I guess we should be moving to the next agenda item, which is approving the minutes. Do we have any public comments on minutes? Is that the next step?
That is the next step. At this time, if you'd like to make a public comment on this item, which is approving the minutes from the last Parks and Recreation Commission meeting, please notify staff by using the raise hand feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you're dialing in, you can use *9 to engage the raise hand function. And I don't see any raised hands.
Okay, then if that's the case, I don't know if there are any commissioners that want to make a comment about the minutes, or if somebody wants to, if not, make a motion to approve the minutes in a second, please.
A motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Okay, I'm sorry, Commissioner Brosnan made the motion, and I didn't catch who seconded the motion, but we have that down. Oh, okay. Commissioner Punyagi, thank you. And do I ask for the call, or does somebody else ask for the call? How does that work?
I can do it. So there's a motion on the floor to approve the minutes from the September Parks and Recreation Commission meeting. And let's see, Commissioner Joshua, how do you vote?
Abstain.
Commissioner Theriault, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Diepenbrock,
Yes.
Commissioner Bunyagit?
Yes.
I think she's saying yes. And Chair Bryman
Yes.
and Commissioner Brosnan.
Yes.
And the motion passes.
Thank you. Thank you for the vote. We'll then move on to agenda item E2, which is the recommendation to continue the pickleball pilot program through January 30th of 23 and to expand its scope. Let's see here. The Library and Community Services Director Sean Reinhardt and Community Services Supervisor Tricia Mullen will provide recommendations on continuing and expanding the pickleball pilot program through June 30th of 23. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. So right now that'll be myself and Tricia Mullen, who is the LCS.
Oh, okay.
That'll tag team this. Sorry about that mix up. So the pickleball pilot program, if we can go to the next page. So background on the pickleball pilot program, it's all in the staff report. So if you need the timeline to date and other background information, everything is stated in that's attached to the agenda. Also, the city of Menlo Park operates 15 tennis-sized courts citywide. There's 2 at Kelly Park, there's 4 at Willow Oaks Park, there's 2 at Burgess, 5 at Nealon, and then we have 2 at Lon Trotters Middle School. During the pickleball pilot program, 13 of the 15 size tennis courts remained exclusively dedicated to tennis only, which averages out to 87%. 2 of the 15 were converted to pickleball courts, 1 at Kelly Park, 1 at Nealon. Each tennis court accommodating up to 4 courts apiece at each one, giving us a total of 8. Key considerations. One is that the community desire for more pickleball court space. Another is a potential revision to tennis and pickleball user fees. Tennis, which we don't have pickleball user fees right now because there is a pilot, but something to think about is revising what we have up for our tennis court fees and then incorporating some user fees in some user fees for pickleball in the master fee schedule. Other considerations is that the impacts to tennis users of reducing the number of available tennis courts at Nealon during this pickleball pilot program. Changes in usage of resulting from changes in pickleball usage could result in planned construction of 3 purpose-built pickleball courts at Willow Oaks Park. In addition to the 4 tennis courts that's there. So that's in addition, so 3 purpose-built in addition to the 4 tennis courts that reside already. Something else to consider is the estimated costs and timelines for creating additional purpose pickleball courts within other city parks. And then alignment of pickleball related capital projects with the goals and priority and timelines established in the Park and Recreation Facilities Master Plan. So just some key considerations to think about. The recommendation here is that staff recommends that the Park and Recreation Commission recommend continuing the pickleball pilot program through June 30th, 2023 and expanding its scopes. And that's what the following next steps, which my colleague Trisha Mullen will kind of go more into depth with as far as our recommendations.
Thank you, Rondell. Good evening, commissioners. So with the next steps to extend and expand, we plan to continue to provide 4 pickleball courts at Kelly Park with no pickleball user fees charged during the pilot program. In addition, we plan to increase the total number of Nealon Park pickleball courts from 4 pickleball courts to 6 pickleball courts by relocating the 4 existing pickleball courts from tennis court number 5 to more spacious tennis courts of number 1 and 2, and which will add 2 more pickleball courts for a total total availability of 6 pickleball courts located on tennis courts number 1 and number 2. We also plan to revert Nealon Park tennis court number 5, currently being used for pickleball, back to the use of tennis, with tennis user fees continuing to be charged per the City of Menlo Park's master fee schedule during the pickleball pilot program. Just want to illustrate what we're talking about. These are the 5 courts of Nealon Park. Court number 1 and 2, those are the courts we're identifying to be the new pickleball courts, and we're proposing to put 6 courts here. And then court number 5 is the existing temporary courts for pickleball, which we would then move back to tennis. So yeah, we'll revert that back. And then this is a diagram of what the 6 pickleball courts will look like. We can only put 6 on the 2 courts. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we will remove the nets from the tennis courts. In addition, we plan to construct 3 new purpose-built pickleball courts at Willow Oaks Park, in addition to existing 4 tennis courts, as part of the Willow Oaks Park renovation project, tentatively scheduled to begin in 2023. We will also analyze community needs and develop estimated costs and timelines for potentially creating additional purpose-built pickleball courts in city parks in alignment with the goals and priorities established in the Parks and Recreation Facilities Master Plan. And lastly, we will evaluate options for user fees related to pickleball and tennis, including but not limited to the following considerations. Ensure that Menlo Park residents of all backgrounds, income levels, and lived experience have meaningful, equitable, inclusive access to public recreation amenities, including tennis courts and pickleball courts. Prioritize use by Menlo Park residents and deprioritize use by non-residents. Evaluate current and potential user fees, including pickleball court fees, tennis court fees, and court reservation fees. Evaluate user fees for city-sponsored tennis and pickleball programming. Evaluate rental fees for use of city courts for private instruction. All fees are subject to City Council's authorization and the City of Menlo Park Master Fee Schedule. Target effective date for potential user fee revisions is July 1st, 2023. With that, we're also considering some pickleball instruction. Community members have expressed interest in receiving instruction on pickleball techniques. Staff is in the process of engaging the services of a qualified pickleball instructor to provide instructional classes tentatively in the spring of 2023, starting with introductory classes to potential players with potentially more advanced instruction to follow. Other goals of the instructional program are to attract new players to the sport and to increase pickleball usage in locations where city pickleball courts are currently underutilized. With that, I just want to reiterate the recommendation. Staff recommends that the Parks and Recreation Commission recommend continuing the pickleball pilot program through June 30, 2023, and expanding its scope per the next steps and key considerations outlined above. With that, we'll take some questions and comments. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. We all do. Do we have any public comments on this agenda item? I can't imagine that we don't.
Oh, at this time, if you'd like to make a public comment on this item, which is pickleball, please notify the staff liaison by using the raise hand feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you're dialing in, you can use *9 to engage the raise hand function. We do have some comments. It's cutting off my allow to talk button. So let me see if I can resize this real quick. There we go. Okay. And so first up is Prescott. And Prescott, once I give you the ability to talk, if you could just share your last name. Go ahead, we can hear you.
We good?
Yes.
Great. So my name is Prescott Lee. I've been residing at 317 University Drive in Menlo Park for over 25 years. I play tennis regularly and pickleball occasionally. Personally, I support the expansion of pickleball in Menlo Park, but not at the expense of tennis, specifically at Neyland Park. The Parks and Rec staff cited observations of court usage as the basis for their recommendation. Two fundamental questions must be addressed. First, do these observations accurately reflect the demand for tennis and pickleball among Menlo Park residents? And beyond the tennis community, what will be the impact of these recommendations on other Neyland Park constituents? 3 days ago, I emailed the Parks and Rec commissioners requesting specific information about these observations of court usage. Questions like, were Menlo Park residents counted separately from non-residents? What were the days, times, and durations of the observations? I have yet to receive a pertinent response from those questions that were sent 3 days ago. However, according to the PRC's Jennifer Baskin, a true statistical survey of tennis and pickleball demand among Menlo Park residents has not been conducted. Next slide, please. So in lieu of such a survey, we can look to tennis and pickleball participation rates across the United States as a proxy for Menlo Park. In the 2 years from 2019 to 2021, pickleball participation grew by 1.3 million players. Over the same period, tennis participation increased by nearly 5 million players. All in all, there are more than 4 tennis players for every 1 pickleball player. Next slide. Using this 4-to-1 tennis to pickleball player ratio, you can see that Neyland Park already disproportionately favors pickleball over tennis. The staff's recommendation would further increase the severity of this disproportionality. And may I remind the commission that the 2019 Menlo Park Parks and Recreation Master Plan states as a primary goal an integrated, equitable, and inclusive park and recreation system. Equitable. Next slide, please. Now, beyond tennis, what is the impact on other Neyland Park constituents? Let's talk about the homes on the other side of Middle Avenue from the courts. You can see them in the lower right corner of the photo on the slide. Court 5, where the pickleball courts currently reside, is 140 feet from these homes. Courts 3 and 4 are 100 feet from these homes, 40 feet closer than Court 5. Courts 1 and 2, where they want to put the new pickleball courts, are a mere 65 feet from these homes. That's 75 feet closer than Court 5. The typical noise level of a pickleball court is 70 decibels at 100 feet away from the court. There's a Menlo Park ordinance, Ordinance 8.06, that limits noise hitting a residential property line to 60 decibels. So moving pickleball courts 1 and 2, or even to courts 3 and 4, will not only violate the Menlo Park City noise ordinance, but it would also drive down property values for those homeowners. And what about the Menlo Atherton Nursery Co-op? Courts 1 and 2 are just 15 feet away. Courts 3 and 4 are only 60 feet away. You can imagine how difficult it would be to conduct class or for the children to nap, especially on a mild or warm day when the windows have to be open. And finally, there's Hillview Middle School. There are 80 kids on the Hillview Middle School tennis team. They use courts 1 through 4 for practices and home matches. And they require 3 tennis courts for practice, they require 4 tennis courts for practice or hosting home matches. So 3 tennis courts would not be sufficient. They would be forced to find a new home. So in summary, the Neyland Park pickleball expansion recommendation for Neyland Park, it is not based on reliable evidence of tennis and pickleball demand among Menlo Park residents, specifically emphasizing residents. They will only increase the already inequitable and disproportionate support for pickleball over tennis. They will drive down nearby home values. They will severely impact the operations of the adjacent nursery school, and they will orphan the Hillview Middle School tennis team. In conclusion, the Parks and Rec Commission needs to find a permanent solution for pickleball at a location where the adverse effects will be minimal. Neyland Park is not the answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Prescott.
Prescott, if I could just, I know there was another commenter you combined your time with. If I
Yeah.
could just have that name as well.
That's Lynn Mickleborough.
Thank you very much.
And that was in my email I sent you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next, we have Vern Leslie. Go ahead, Vern.
Hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Well, Prescott, you make a really strong case there, and we appreciate that. What we do know about this community, you are totally correct with all the decibels and the studies and all of that about noise. But I don't know if you ever heard about noise reducing screens that, we are in the process of actually looking at installing those and maybe, getting some help in terms of funding, because I'm an ambassador for USA Pickleball, and we will certainly look at funding to reduce the noise level. We also think that, using 4 courts for Hillview Tennis and now reduced to 3 courts for Hillview Tennis would still be a good thing for them and not act in their disfavor. It will actually be serving 2 purposes, right? So the screens will take care of the neighbors. The screens will take care of the nursery school. And the 3 courts, the 4 courts for the middle school would be reduced to 3 courts. So how about sharing? That would be really nice. This is a community. We need to take care of the greater good. The greater good is there is a bigger demand for pickleball right now than there ever was for tennis. First of all, we are also serving more residents by creating more pickleball courts for residents. So let's look at sharing instead of trying to move this to another place. Okay, we are totally happy where we are. I think it's convenient for our residents to be there. I think we have a driving number every day of people coming into pickleball. We want to offer them the best services ever. And we totally understand the jealousy coming from the tennis community because I'm a tennis professional myself. And I absolutely appreciate what pickleball is doing for the tennis community because it's so much helping our tennis players to become better tennis players, playing pickleball and tennis at the same time. And I'm going to welcome you to join us, Prescott, because your wife certainly enjoys the time with us too. We want to encourage any community members to get into it, come and play pickleball, come and enjoy it. All you commission members, come along, come and enjoy some good time with us playing pickleball, because really is fun. If there is any need in terms of raising funding for the sound screen, I'll be the first to donate money. And I'm going to encourage every single member on this call to do the same. The city needs help. We're here to help you. Please be free to reach out. Thank you.
Thank you, Vern.
Are there any other public comments?
We have 6 more.
Thank you.
Shawnee, if you could state your last name.
I'm Shawnee Podell. I live at 607 Bay Road. I play tennis and I play pickleball at Nealon. I would like to thank Prescott for his comments. I basically agree with everything he said. I'm actually in favor of expanding pickleball in Menlo Park and building a large dedicated facility, but I'm not in favor of converting tennis courts at Nealon or anywhere in Menlo Park to accomplish this, not even on a temporary basis. The tennis courts are already in high demand. I've actually paid $1,700 since January 2021 to reserve tennis courts during prime hours on weeknights and weekends. I wouldn't do this if I could easily get a court, right? I mean, why would I? And by the way, I pay for a key, right? That doesn't make a difference. In addition, there's, it is the home of the Hillview Middle School tennis team, and I'm a coach on that team. And we do require 4 dedicated tennis courts to be able to host matches. So I hear what you're saying, Vern, about 3 courts, but we wouldn't be able to have a team at Nealon otherwise. And I don't think you're going to be sharing your courts at Menlo with me. So that's probably, I'm not sure about the whole sharing thing. The other thing that I have an issue with is that at Nealon, actually court 1 and 2 have the best lighting of any of the courts in all of Menlo Park. And arguably it's the only ones that have adequate lighting for tennis at night. So if those courts are converted, basically there is no tennis at night. And there's a lot of us who have been playing tennis at Nealon for like 15 years on Monday nights. So that would be pretty soul crushing for me. Aside from the proposed impact on tennis court availability, it's also in the wrong location. Pickleball is social, it's fast paced, it's really fun, but it's really noisy. And frankly, I don't think that some screening is really going to help. If you look at other communities, say like Bend, Oregon, they built their outdoor pickleball courts in areas that are out of audible range from residences. Conversely, Nealon Park is surrounded by high density housing, a preschool, and single family homes. I mean, you just heard the neighbors talking about the zip line, right? They're actually the closest to courts 1 and 2. So I'd love to know what Christine and Paul think about this. We could turn our attention to fast tracking permanent home for pickleball in a location that wouldn't create friction in the community. So I'd like you to think about prioritizing Burgess Park, specifically next to the skate park for pickleball courts. I measured the area. There's enough room for at least 10 courts with minimum impact to the existing fields. It's far away from residences, so it will limit the noise concerns for neighbors as bathrooms, parking. You could actually fit 4 courts right now where the basketball court is, with I'd say it cost about the same as what it would cost to convert the courts at Elon. So I want to be clear, I'm pro racket sports, but I'd like us to find a win-win instead of the solutions you're proposing now, which are pretty much a win-lose. So thank you.
Thanks, Shani.
Okay, and next we have Brian Kissel. Go ahead, Brian.
Hi, thanks so much to the Commission and the Parks and Recreation Department for this proposal. I have worked with a number of the members of the pickleball community posting the recommendation to Google Doc and gotten input from many of the pickleball players across the community who fully support the recommendation and are appreciative of it. I do want to respond to a couple comments about the fact that we don't have data. In fact, the pickleball community has been waiting since January for data to justify the expansion, and the Parks and Recreation survey, Parks and Recreation Department did do a survey, and in that survey, in question number 12, after neighborhood family access to athletic fields, the number 1 requested additional capacity was pickleball, casual drop-in play, ahead of soccer, basketball, gymnastics, and tennis. This is statistically significant for our community. Additionally, in question number 4, they asked how frequently these activities were being used: public libraries, recreation centers, senior programs, etc. And pickleball came in at 20% or more per week, higher than any other activity category except for recreational walk-on. In question number 7, please tell us your ideas and needs for suggestions for the community. 26% of the responses were for additional pickleball capacity. And for question number 14, please tell us your ideas and needs and suggestions for the city athletic programs. 78 out of 165, or 47% of the responses, were specifically asking for additional pickleball capacity in classes. So we do have data that says there is a big increasing demand for pickleball capacity in Menlo Park. With respect to the location, as we understood from the Parks and Recreation Department, this is a pilot program. And so the pilot program is trying to use existing facilities. I think the community is, pickleball community, and I can't speak for everyone, but are welcome to have those facilities wherever they may be to minimize any adverse impact on other homeowners or schools or tennis players. But there's no reality that we're going to have court capacity anytime soon with a new build. So we think this recommendation for extending the pilot through June of next year and using courts 1 and 2 is probably the best, least expensive, quickest way to meet the expanding need of the pickleball community. We did send a list of additional questions with respect to the proposal via email to the Commission and the Parks and Recreation Department yesterday. We won't have time to discuss them now, but we did want to provide some consolidated feedback.
Thanks,
Thank you
Brian.
for your time.
Next, we have May Yick. Please correct me if I said that wrong. Go ahead, May.
Thank you. Hi, members of the Park and Recreation Commission. My name is May Yick, and I'm a Menlo Park resident living on Willow Road. First of all, I'd like to respond to Prescott's analysis, a grateful analysis, but what's not taken into consideration there is the changing of one tennis court to 4 pickleball courts. You are impacting only 2 tennis players, but you will benefit 16 pickleball players. And I think that's an important point to be taken into account. I'd like to press my support of the staff recommendation of expanding the number of pickleball courts at Nealon Park from 4 to 6 courts. I appreciate the staff recognition that there is a growing need for additional pickleball courts. What I want to know is the timetable implementing this change. I would advocate a quick implementation. Having recognized the need for more pickleball courts times at Nealon, I'd like to see that the court's priority be given to pickleball for the whole day from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. I'm talking about court number 5 now. The court usage has shown this need, so providing pickleball priority is a logical step. It would give pickleball players some reassurance that 16 pickleball players will not be kicked off the courts upon the arrival of 2 tennis players under the current court scenario at court 5 after 3 p.m. Please implement this priority change now. Lastly, I'd like to make a proposal that will open up more courts for both tennis and pickleball players. There seems to be a significant amount of unauthorized instruction sessions at the courts. These private instruction sessions take courts away from legitimate players. I propose that each authorized instructor be given a permit from the city, and this permit must be hung on the gate to the courts where the instruction is given. This way, any player can see whether an instruction session is sanctioned by the city. The city should post signs on the courts which allow any players to ask non-sanctioned instructors to vacate the court when they need to use the court to play. As of now, I don't see any serious enforcement of the city policy on unauthorized instructions. My proposal will provide a mechanism for implementing the city policy and open up more courts for legitimate players to enjoy their games. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, May.
Okay, next we have Katrina. Katrina, if you could just state your first and last name.
Hi, this is Katrina Ryan on College Avenue. I have 2 requests I'd like to raise. First, I'd like to specifically ask the commission to really focus in on recommendation number 2 and recommendation number 3 on your proposal. Those are the recommendations that focus on Nealon Park. And I raise this because of one of your commission's key priorities is listed on your website, which is, quote, modification of existing programs and facilities to meet developing community needs, end quote. So while most of your recommendations do focus on expanding pickleball for our community, recommendations number 2 and 3 can really start to meet that need almost immediately if enacted. If these recommendations need to be separated from the rest of the proposal in order to meet demand sooner, I'm hoping that this idea can be explored. So my second ask is related, as it's about timing. When these issues were raised by a huge turnout of residents back at the January meeting, I believe we were told that this issue would be addressed in March or April, which is now over 6 months ago. And I know the commission is busy and I'm so grateful for all of your time. However, analysts really expect pickleball's popularity to continue to skyrocket. And we know from your survey that Nealon Park is the most popular destination for pickleball already in Menlo Park. So as May mentioned, there's an issue too with the number of players that can play tennis versus pickleball. If those courts number 1 and 2 are used for tennis, it serves 4 people for singles and 8 for doubles. Whereas those courts would serve 24 pickleball players, as almost all pickleball games are played in foursomes. I hope the commission takes the opportunity now to meet the growing demand right here in our neighborhood. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Katrina.
Next, we have Pierre Sintra. Go ahead, Pierre, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry. I live at 907 Timothy Lane in the Flood Park zone in Menlo Park. Appreciate the Parks and Recreation Committee to the proposal that you're putting together. As Katrina said, we were expecting this a long time ago, but better late than never. I was a little bit puzzled with first the presentation from Prescott that he uses 4 players per tennis court. I normally play 3 times a week in the evening on a regular basis. And a bunch of us have been taking pictures of empty tennis courts, courts 3 and 4, completely empty, or maybe with 2 players in 2 courts, while at the pickleball courts, we have regularly 16 people playing and 8 people waiting, 8+ people waiting, to a point where sometimes, for those of you who don't know pickleball, the score goes to 11. Sometimes we have to say, look, we are all playing up to 7. We can't play to 11 because otherwise people have to wait too long to play. And then we reduce the score to 7 so that people can roll in very quickly. So the fact that people say, well, there could be 4 tennis players, this never happens. We have plenty of pictures. We have a Facebook group where we are posting those pictures showing empty tennis courts while the pickleball courts are completely packed. So we need more pickleball courts. I'm not sure if there will ever be 4 tennis players playing in a tennis court, because I have never seen that in all the evenings that I've been there. So just to emphasize, I think we need more pickleball courts. I think spreading them around Menlo Park is not consistent with pickleball. Pickleball is a pickup game, and it's better to have them all concentrated in one place. Even though I live closer to Willow Oaks, that that doesn't help me because I would continue going to Neyland Park. But appreciate all your efforts, and I think the sooner we make this change, the better. And honestly, I would prefer not to have a pilot, but to have a permanent placement for the pickleball courts. And thank you for all your efforts.
Thank you. And we have one more. So let's, oops, sorry. Oh, make that a few more. Okay, David Yoshida. Go ahead whenever you're ready, David.
Yes, this is David Yoshida. I live in West Menlo on Deanna Drive. And I want to thank the Parks and Rec for the 4 pickleball courts we have on Court 5 at Neyland Park. My wife and I have been very supportive of pickleball since the court lines were first put in last August. We have tried to go daily from about 9:30 to noon to develop a pickleball program in Menlo Park. I appreciate Brian Kissel for all his work in terms of organizing the pickleball, and also want to thank Vern Leslie, who has been very helpful in terms of net maintenance at Neyland Park. And I'm certainly supportive of Brian and Katrina and Pierre and May for their comments. Listened very intently to them. Also heard Prescott and his interest in tennis. My wife and I were both tennis players, and we've converted to pickleball and would invite everyone else to join us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Next, we have Adam Hopkins. Go ahead, Adam.
Great. Hi, this is Adam Hopkins. I just would like to express my support for the staff proposal and reiterate a few points that have been made in support of pickleball. First, as we know, pickleball is a largely popular and rapidly growing sport, and we're really seeing that here in the Bay Area with increasing number of players daily, including in Palo Alto at Mitchell Park, which is getting increasingly crowded, including those of us who live in Menlo Park but travel over to Mitchell. And now Menlo Park at Neyland is getting increasingly crowded as well, such that during the busy times of play, there's often a large number of pickleball players playing and waiting, while there are maybe a few people playing on the tennis courts, which is very frustrating for all of the players waiting to play when there is clearly court capacity available and not being utilized. It's particularly when, as others have pointed out, pickleball is a much more space efficient sport, and you can basically, with the proposed court arrangement, you'll be able to have 3 times the number of players on the same amount of court space, which is terrific for larger participation. And Neon is a great central location that pickleball players have discovered and flocked to, and it's creating a great local community and people meeting people they didn't know before. It would be terrific to have dedicated long-term courts, a la what's happened over time at Mitchell Park in Palo Alto. But there is a high demand for courts right now. And so the current proposal, I just like to reiterate, is the best and quickest way to meet that near-term need. And so I'm very supportive of the staff proposal near-term, as well as looking for additional space for pickleball over the long term. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Andrea and Nate. If you could just state your first and last name and then let me know if you're combining time. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Nate Gardner and my wife, Andrea Balin. We, as of this year, have lived in Menlo Park for 30 years in West Menlo on Santa Cruz Avenue. So I would like to reiterate my support for the proposal. I'm a former tennis player and now exclusively play pickleball. I understand and can sympathize because my past has included trying to get court time at Neon as well. However, there were courts at Oak Knoll and Hillview that were actually taken away from the tennis court pool. So I would say that we've got an ongoing problem with court pressure, and it, as other folks have reiterated, it's only going to get worse because pickleball is rapidly growing. If you look at the news, it's just all over the news. And as a former tennis player, I can speak personally to why I switched. It's just a much more enjoyable sport at my age, and I'm able to play it more often. So I won't be playing tennis anymore. I'm one of the, I'm a reduced, how should I say it? I've reduced the population of Menlo Park tennis players, but I play pickleball 3 to 4 times a week, primarily at Neon. So please expand the number of courts at Neon. Yes, there are opportunities to reduce the noise pressure, and permanent courts at a site like Burgess would be greatly welcomed. Thank you.
Thank you. And let's see. James Schott, you are next.
Thank you, and thank you. This is James Schott. I live on Cotton Street. I've been a pickleball player for approximately 6 months, and I'd like to thank the Parks and Rec Commission for the work that's going on to this, but also to say, just to reinforce and echo the points. I play frequently in mornings and often at night, and there's rarely a time when there are not 12, 16, 20, 24 people actively playing during the peak hours. And I'd like to see more people playing tennis, but they're not there. There may often be one person practicing with, or two players on occasion, and a rare occasion there may be 4 tennis players. It isn't a question of whether tennis should be restricted, but the opportunity and need for pickleball seems so great. The other request is simple. Maybe this is something for next year's pilot program, but would love to see the Aralaga Center open to indoor pickleball. And if there might be an opportunity to pilot that during the raining season, I'm certain it would be equal and strong demand. But thank you. Thank you all for your work and consideration.
Thank you, James. Next, we have Amy Harris. Amy, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can. Go ahead.
Okay. Hi, my name is Amy Harris. I've lived in Menlo Park for 27 years, and I've grown to love pickleball over the last 4 years. I play with several good friends or with my husband at Mitchell Park in Palo Alto, which has become packed with pickleball players. You have to often get there at 7:30 in the morning to get a court. Or I've played at Sunnyvale Tennis Center or at Rangsdorf or occasionally at Kelly Park. I've played in some indoor locations. To be honest, I haven't tried to play at Nealon Park in several months because it was usually so packed with pickleballers when my friends and I have tried to play there. So I'd be absolutely thrilled if we had more space to play at Nealon or at Willow Oaks Park, which is right near my house in the Willows, or even at Burgess Park, as someone mentioned. I really appreciate all of your efforts to increase the number of courts available. It's become such a popular sport and it really is super fun. So thank you for whatever you can do to increase availability in Menlo Park. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Next, we have Derek Shirley. Go ahead, Derek.
Yes, so I represent Hillview Middle School and their after-school sports program. And while I appreciate the growing population of pickleball players in the community, of which I am definitely one, I am concerned about the Hillview tennis program, which still has a very vibrant community and would, as Shawnee and Prescott previously stated, would be hard pressed to continue the program under this current pilot program if you do indeed take courts 1 and 2 away from us during our tennis season. I'm not sure if there's a compromise that could be made to where during February, March, April, we could have 4 courts. It sounds like it might be difficult if you're removing nets from courts 1 and 2, as was proposed. But I'm trying to talk to the league head to see if there's any way we can still maintain a program at Hillview with limited access to Nealon, but I'm skeptical that that would be available. So my appeal to the board is just to consider any options that may include allowing Hillview to continue having 4 courts during their tennis season. It's only 3 months. It runs from 3 to 6:30 in the afternoon on the weekdays. And if we can do that, maybe we can, have a good compromise for both the pickleball community and the Hillview tennis program. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Derek. And do we have any other commenters for pickleball? Okay. It looks like that's it. Oh, I'm sorry. Anya.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Anya, if you could just state your first and last name.
Yes. Hi, Anya
Hi.
Brow. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. So I am a resident of Menlo Park for 18 years and regularly play on the Nealon courts at least once or twice a week and have with the same group for 15 years. So it's a substantial part of my life. And I wanted to respond to the comment about whether there are tennis players on the courts. Some folks mentioned that they don't sometimes see tennis players on the courts. My experience is the opposite. And when I read through the responses to the Menlo Park survey, the open forum responses, almost all of the tennis comments were related to lack of ability to drop in and excessive use by private lessons. So a lot of tennis players are being turned away, and the nature of pickleball and tennis is very different. Pickleball players rotate in. Tennis players will drive by, and if it's occupied, will keep going. So I think there's a lot of demand for tennis courts that is not being captured. And if we had a better reservation system, which I've experienced multiple times, double booking, or I've booked it, but there's a private lesson going on at that time. It's not a reliable system. So I think some tennis folks are just giving up. So I think a strong recommendation is we are putting all this pressure on tennis court availability by the private lessons as well as pickleball conversion that I think we should seriously examine, because their private lessons are often non-Menlo Park residents. And, for those of us who have paid the tennis court key fee and pay for the reservations and still are sometimes turned away, that's a very dissatisfying experience for a lifelong and avid tennis player like myself. So I also like pickleball, but I feel like this is a win-lose situation as opposed to a win-win. Thank you.
Thank you. And I see Vern Leslie, you have your hand up again, but you already went with your 3 minutes. Do we?
No, I don't think we're going to have a round 2 here of public comments, are we?
We do have one more public comment from.
If somebody hasn't spoken, that's different.
Bye. Bye, if you could just state your last name.
Hello, I'm Viola Ng. I'm actually giving my time to Dana Wintrop. Dana, are you there? She's trying to call in.
Okay.
She's my neighbor. But I just wanted to say that I do support keeping the tennis courts and building special facilities as for pickleball for that demand.
Okay, thank you.
Dana? Can you unmute Dana? She's on the call. She's on her phone.
Can you just give me maybe the last 3 or 4 digits of the phone number? There's a few people who dialed in. Does it end in 33?
7933.
Okay, I'm gonna have to mute you and then I'll
Thank
unmute
you.
her. Thank you. Dana, can you?
Hello?
There we go. Hi.
Hello? Oh, thank you so much. I've been trying to talk. I appreciate that. Hello, everyone. I'm sorry I'm late to the conversation. So I know I've missed a lot of the tennis perspective, and I've heard the pickleball. Also a new fan of pickleball, so understand where the picklers are coming from, the pickleball players are coming from. A longtime tennis player, similar to Anya. I've been playing ever since I've been in Menlo Park, so over 20 years on those Neyland courts. And similar, just want to voice that they may sometimes be empty, but they are, as Anya said, oftentimes we try to get on them, and if they're full, we all of us are driving all over Menlo Park looking for open courts. A lot of us work, so that a lot of it is in the same hours. But there is definitely a need for even more tennis courts. We're going to other communities to look for tennis courts. So to think that those tennis courts are going to be converted to pickleball will be very disappointing for many. I also I'm very involved in youth athletics and have seen the Hillview tennis program for many years before currently. And it is a gem of a program for Hillview. And thank you to Shani and Preston for coaching, and for all the other coaches that have put their time in. It would be very, very sad to see yet another program that allows more kids to be physically active, unable to use those courts. So that'll be all my time. So I hope there's a way that I agree with the idea to build an individual pickleball court so we don't have this conflict.
Thank you. Mary Angela Smania. I'm sorry about that. I'm sure I pronounced that wrong.
Hi, my name is Mary Angela Ismania. I live in Menlo Park for the last 18 years. And I would like to use my time to Vern, if you don't mind.
Okay. I'm going to have to mute you and I'll unmute Vern.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Vern.
So very generous of you, Marie Angela. Thank you for that. It was just a short message to say that, look, we need to learn to share. I can reiterate that over and over again. It looks like tennis players are feeling like they're being excluded or being neglected. That's not the case. We want you to be part of this community, like we would like more tennis players to join pickleball as much as tennis players would like to have more pickleball players join tennis, I guess. But that doesn't seem to be the issue. I would also like to say that if Hillview needs tennis courts, let's have a conversation and we can talk about that. Because I certainly might have access to more tennis courts for you. So let's have a conversation, please, Hillview. Thank you.
Thank you, Vern. Okay, if there's no other public comment on pickleball, I'm just going to give everybody a moment to make sure that they're not trying to raise their hands. AJ, if you could just state your last name.
Sure, AJ Jacquiani. I live here in Linfield Oaks, and I just wanted to give my time to Prescott.
Okay. I'm going to remove your permission to speak. And Prescott. Go ahead, Prescott.
Actually, it's not to me. It should be to Lynn Mickleborough, who gave me her
okay.
time. Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Lynn.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Okay, my name is Lynn Mickleborough. I live on University Drive. I've been a resident of Menlo Park for about 18 years. I'm an occasional pickleball player. I love the game, and also an avid tennis player. And I would love both to work. I mean, I think I love pickleball. It brings the community together, and it's a very tight community. And as you can see, that's why there's so many people on the call today, because they're together in a very small space a lot, and they're very organized. But I do want to make sure that the voice is heard of the tennis players, because there are lots and lots of tennis players in Menlo Park and surrounding communities. And my experience trying to use the Menlo Park tennis courts is that they are rarely available between the hours of about 8:30 and 10:30, and between the hours of 4:30 and 8 at night. There have been many occasions where I have gone to play tennis and at Nylon, and there is a wait. The courts are taken. And as some other people suggested, when the courts there are full, the pickleball people might look over and say, oh, well, there's nobody waiting for a tennis court, but that doesn't actually reflect the demand, because the fact is, if we're waiting for a tennis court, we often have to wait 30 minutes, 45 minutes, maybe even an hour to get a tennis court. So we do normally leave, and we end up, as somebody else said, driving all around Menlo Park, Palo Alto, wherever we can to try to find a court. Oftentimes in those hours, you cannot get a court. Pickleball people, I understand that sometimes there's a wait, but they do rotate in. And just to the comment that somebody else had about density, if we're going for density, yes, you can fit more pickleball players on a tennis ball court, but why don't we look at baseball or basketball or some other activity that was lower on the the rating of question 12 in the survey that went out last year, tennis and pickleball had about the same rating and popularity, but there were a lot of other sports that were much lower, that have a much lower density of people per square foot of usage. So thanks for listening, and I hope we can work out something that makes everybody happy.
Thank you. Emily Robinson. Go ahead, Emily.
Hi.
Hi.
Sorry, I didn't realize I had raised my hand, but
Oh.
that's all right. I'm a tennis ball player. I have a lot of friends who play pickleball, and it looks like it's a really fun sport. There's a lot of people playing. It looks like a great community. I'm one of the traveling tennis players who goes from court to court looking for open space. It's kind of the joke that, that we're the nomads and we have to kind of travel around trying to find places that are open. So I would really advocate for not taking any more tennis courts. What I'm wondering is, I know in Flood Park, there are at least 4 kind of rundown, dilapidated tennis courts. And I know that's part of the larger plan to convert the park, to update the park and bring more sports in there. I'm wondering if we can use those 4 courts, convert them to pickleball for right now. So instead of taking up a tennis court temporarily at Neelan, if we could look to other spaces that are already open and probably easy to convert. So that's just a suggestion that we can use that won't take up any existing court space, and use that as a temporary measure until Flood gets renovated.
Thank you.
Thanks, Emily.
Okay, last call for public comment. If any member of the public would like to comment, please use the raise hand function or press *9. Okay. Oh, one more. It's a dial in.
Of course.
Hi, if you could just state your name. It's the phone number ending in 600.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
Hi, my name is MJ Davey, and I'm a pickleball player and have learned it kind of on the East Coast and learned it along the coast. And I'm thrilled that there's a place to play in Menlo Park because the Palo Alto Club is just so full and a bit overwhelming if you're a new player. So I've been just so happy to get more people playing and more courts in Menlo Park. We were playing back when there was not a test, but over in East Palo Alto at Kelly, we were playing when there was there. It was just kind of a tough space, so it's great to be a little closer and quieter, and thrilled to see more lessons, and the growth has just been exponential. And I hope that tennis and pickleball can find a place to work together and enjoy playing together.
Thank you. Alicia or Alicia, if you could just say your first and last name. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Alicia Falsetto, and I've lived on Santa Cruz Avenue for about 22 years. My husband and I play pickleball a lot, and we love having those courts nearby at Neelan. I just wanted to say that so many new pickleball players have been turned away because they show up and the courts are crowded and it's intimidating, and then they end up walking away. So it's very important, I think, to expand them so we can include all the new people. That's it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And at this time, if there is no other public, one more. JD, if you could just state your first and last name.
It's JD Tappy.
Okay, go ahead.
I want to give my time to Monica Williams. Is she calling in or? She's about to call in.
What's the last 3 digits of the phone number?
It is 9493. She's I think she's getting on her computer.
Okay.
Sorry. She's the president of Palo Alto Pickleball.
Actually, I see there's another hand up. Maybe while we're waiting for Ms. Williams to dial in, you could move on to the.
She's on, so she's ready when you are.
What was the first name again?
Monica Williams.
And you said it was 94.
You know what? She may be. Wait, let me see if she's on computer. She's probably listening right now.
Yeah, why don't we go to the next speaker, then we can circle back.
Thanks.
To Monica. Yeah, no problem.
Oh.
Mike Orsak. Mike, go
Yes,
ahead.
Mike Orsak. I've lived on San Mateo Drive for 23 years. I'm a lifetime tennis player and now an avid pickleball player. And so the comment I'd like to make in support of pickleball is that I've met more people in the community of Menlo Park in the last year playing pickleball than I have in the last 20 years playing tennis.
Thank you. And I still see JD's hand up, but I don't see that other phone number or name. So I would just like to mention you can always email a comment to the Parks and Recreation Committee, or I'm sorry, Commission, and we will send that out to everybody. If there's no.
It looks like yeah.
One more.
Thank you.
Go ahead, John. John, can you hear me? John, if you could just unmute your mic if you're talking.
Here I am.
There we go.
It's not John, it's Monica. Monica Williams.
Oh, there you
please.
are. That's why I
Hi.
couldn't find you.
Hi, yes. So nice to get to talk with you. I just want to say I'm the president of the Palo Alto Pickleball Club, and I just want to encourage you to support pickleball with lines or whatever you can do. It's the most wonderful sport for a community. It has brought so many people together in Palo Alto, residents and neighbors, and it's like an adult playground, and also it encourages youth to play pickleball, get them off their electronics. It's great for families, and people have actually improved their health. The city of Palo Alto is really supporting all of pickleball. It's growing so much because it's such a fantastic sport that is so inclusive. Everybody enjoys each other. Ages doesn't matter. You can play with grandparents or play with children, and it's just an amazing sport. And the reason it's so popular for the community is that you really don't need to make any plans. I'm a tennis player, and I would make plans to go into a court for play doubles. And sometimes I'd get there and one person didn't show up. And so that spoils the whole thing. Well, what happens with pickleball is you know the time that people are going to be there, and you can just go and, take, say, oh, I've been at the computer for so long, I just want to go and have a game of pickleball. You go over, you know people are there. You can put your paddles down next to a court of a game in play. And when the game's over, you rotate in. And so you're meeting people all the time. I've met people that I used to be on the PTA with, 30, 40 years ago. And so people, it's just the most magnificent game, great sport, and wonderful for the community. I mean, the community gathers and gets to know each other, and it's just the most healthiest for emotional health and for exercise. And so thank you. Hope you can really continue pickleball. And tennis and pickleball are very compatible. And tennis and pickleball players can play together. And that's all I have to say. Good luck. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Monica. Next, we have Luis Torres. Go ahead, Luis.
Hi, good evening. I'm a resident of Menlo Park for the last 3 years and a half. And I just want to, say something about what the last caller said. I mean, all the points about the community and the benefits of pickleball, they really can be applied to any sport. But I think the point that I would apply or agree with what she said is that it doesn't have to be pickleball against tennis. It's not one against the other. I think what we have to do as a community is come up with an idea that allows both communities to continue to use the facilities without giving one more over the other. I think right now it seems to be that the tryout for pickleball is not really looking at it from the pure scientific point of view of experiments. It's not the same situation as tennis courts have, because we have to pay for the courts, we have to make reservations. There's a lot of different factors that make the pickleball situation more palatable to people, but I don't think they're really being measured with the same conditions. Now, that said, I think I see there's a big popularity of pickleball right now, but I think we have to find a point that both can coexist. I think right now, frankly, I think where we are with Neyland Park courts is the perfect situation. I think there's been a lot of comments about people getting to the pickleball courts and they've been busy and they cannot play. Same thing with tennis. I mean, probably you heard that in the earlier parts of the call. A number of times you go there and there's no court, so you stay around, you find other courts. Fine. I mean, that's what happens with public facilities anyway, for everything, right? So I think the situation right now is the right balance for what we need for both tennis players and pickleball players. That actually, I think there's also quite an overlap between the two communities. So that's all I have to share tonight.
Thank you. And if there's no other public comment, we can turn it back over to Mark.
Thank you. Commissioner Diepenbrock, I see you've got your hand up. And now that the commissioners have a chance to say something, I'm just wondering if any of us do.
Yeah, I'll start the conversation. Obviously, it's great to hear from so many residents on the subject. It's a lot of comments. I think it's important for us as commissioners to, separate the comments, into ones that are valid and make sure we're addressing those, just like we did with the zip line conversation earlier tonight. So first of all, it is a pilot program, so we're gonna, try it and see how it goes and obviously get feedback. The equity thing, I have a hard time understanding that argument. I mean, so many tennis players talked about how they had to drive around. Well, pickleball players don't even have that option, so it doesn't really that doesn't hold a lot of water. And as far as the tennis courts, for Hillview, as been mentioned, I think we can definitely figure out that issue. It's not like the tennis nets on courts 1 and 2 need to be removed. That's not a necessity. So I think that issue is easily solvable as far as making sure that our local middle school has a place to play tennis. So those are some of my comments. Then one of the callers mentioned the growth of the two sports, and of all the statistics I've read, I've never seen a statistic that says that tennis is growing faster than pickleball. In fact, what I've seen is there's been 11.5% growth in pickleball over the last 5 years, while tennis grew by 4.2%. And so again, I just think it's our job as commissioners to make sure we are examining the validity of the comments by our residents. And I think my last thought is, if as commissioners, we are concerned about the school and, the courts 1 and 2, maybe we should have the conversation about courts 3 and 4, to address that. I'm not sure exactly how, 1 and 2 were chosen. I think we were trying to get away from the residents that are closest to court 5. But again, it's a pilot program, so we can figure these things out as we get through it. So those are some of my thoughts.
I'd like to ask a question, if possible. With respect to the pilot at Nealon, which is a secondary thing, because we were first going to do it at Kelly, then we expanded it to Nealon because everybody said, oh, it's got to be at Nealon, so we did it at Nealon. There are 4 courts on court 5, is my understanding. Can somebody remind me what the pilot is exactly? In other words, I'm hearing after a certain hour, tennis players can kick them out, or has court 5 been dedicated to pickleball at this point, or no?
Yes.
Entirely?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, just a point of clarification. I believe on court number 5, and either Tricia or Rondell, jump in and correct me if I'm wrong. Technically, the official hours dedicated to pickleball play run until I think 3 p.m.
Yeah, that's technically, Sean. I'm just talking about. I'm talking about reality.
Right. But in the fine print, it's the priority would be pickleball till 3 p.m. and then it's on paper shared use after that.
Yeah.
Okay, so technically, if we were to expand pickleball, if we completely give court 5 to the pickleball players and dedicate that, and we don't say 3 o'clock, whether it's technically or reality or whatever it is, that would be an expansion of sorts, correct?
No, not the way it is now, Mark.
I see. Okay. I want to, one of the public speakers who spoke a couple of times, maybe more, I don't remember, kept talking about sharing and equitability. There are 4 pickleball courts and there are 4 remaining tennis courts. How is 6 and 4, how are 10 pickleball courts and 3 tennis courts? How is that equitable?
Wait, what's the question, Mark?
Are we talking about the expansion would be that we're switching? In other words, we're taking 5 back for tennis. Is that it?
Correct.
I see.
Yeah,
So
let me put
6,
this.
and we would have double the pickleball courts in that scenario, correct?
Well, again, I don't, but again, it depends how you look at it, Mark, because you could say, like it says in the write-up here, that we have 12 tennis courts and we have a total of 3 tennis courts dedicated to pickleball. So that's 12 tennis courts in Menlo Park and 3 courts dedicated to pickleball. So that you're right, if we were going to be equitable, we'd put a lot more tennis courts towards pickleball.
Okay, so back to one of your original comments, Peter. You said, we'd love to be able to drive around and look for pickleball courts. We don't even have that option. Well, what if we gave you that option?
Well, again,
if-
like people have stated, that's just not the way pickleball works. Pickleball is about having a central location to play.
I see. So the tennis players need to drive around, but not the pickleball players.
Right.
Got it.
Because they have a lot more courts.
Right. I'm not a pickleball player, and I don't need statistics from, regional or national or international to be convinced that it's a popular sport and people like it, and we should have more of it. It also seems to me that if we're going to be equitable, that we need to spread it out throughout the community, just like we do with everything else. We have tennis courts that can be converted at Willow Park. We have tennis courts that can be converted at Burgess Park. I happen to believe that we should build specifically dedicated pickleball courts and not convert. But that's another discussion. For right now,
it's kind of one step at a time, though.
Of course. No, of course it is. My feeling is that we should probably expand this, but that we should do it in what I think is a more equitable way. And, I'm sorry, I know the pickleballers probably want every court at Nealon, but that's just not realistic and it's not fair. And so it seems to me that as a body that serves the community as a whole, including neighbors and noise and all that sort of stuff, that what we have at Nealon makes a lot of sense. We should probably expand it so that officially they have 5, which is the 4 courts for the entirety. It's dedicated to that. There is no, we can be kicked out, we shouldn't be kicked out. And then we should dedicate a court at Burgess for part of this trial. We should dedicate a court at Willow Oaks. And, I'm sorry, yes, it would be great to have a pickleball center, right in the middle of everything, but I'm not sure that can be part of our pilot right now.
Yeah, but you're kind of taking this out of context because this process has been going on for 2 years. We had close to 60 pickleball players at our January meeting, and they were promised this to be addressed, as was mentioned, in March or April. So finally, the city comes through in late October and has finally made their decision to listen to all the pickleball players, Mark, and say, we're going to do courts 1 and 2. So now you're going to come right now and say, after all of this time, that you don't think that it's the right thing to do at this point in time, after literally 2 years of this conversation going on and the city finally acting on this? That doesn't seem right.
Peter, I
Mark.
think that's
That doesn't
exactly
seem right, Mark.
That's exactly what I'm going to say.
Yeah, that doesn't seem right. I mean, why didn't you say this in January or last year? I mean, we're already at this point where the recommendation has been made.
We started the program in Kelly Park, which is not convenient for the great majority of people that live in Menlo Park. There are several other parks that can accommodate this that are more centrally located. Now, look, I'm not a pickleball guru, and maybe I just don't understand that if you put the courts other than all in one place, then you're destroying the entire program. But it seems to me that it needs to be an equitable decision for everybody involved. As people keep saying, tennis, pickleball, everybody needs to be happy here, the neighbors. And this idea of sharing makes a lot of sense to me, but sharing and having 8 of one and 3 of another, or 6 of one and 3 of another doesn't seem equitable to me.
How is it not equitable to have 12 tennis courts for tennis and only 3 courts for pickleball? I don't understand that equity. I don't understand.
Peter, you keep talking about 12 courts. Where are there 12 courts?
La Entrada,
Correct.
Willow Oaks Park, Burgess,
Right.
Nealon, and Kelly Park. There are 12.
Exactly.
courts.
We're saying the same thing. Use some of those courts and convert them to expand the pickleball program.
It's not the way pickleball works.
Could I interject at this point just to note that other commissioners, I believe they have their hand raised.
I'm sorry, I'm not seeing hands. Why am I not seeing any hands?
Mayron and Joshua have, Peter Joshua have their.
I'm so sorry, guys. I can only fit so many things on my screen. Commissioner Boone-Gaji.
Hi. I appreciate hearing everyone's comments, and it's great to hear how passionate both pickleball, tennis players are. And, you know, I think what I'm hearing from everyone is just the access, right? That's bottom line. So if we focus on where the temporary fix is for now and then go beyond there, heard a lot of great comments from the different residents about giving access. So if we officially have pickleball the full amount of time on the court that it's currently on during the pilot, that could be one solution. I heard about using indoor facilities during rainy days, or even as part of a pilot. If we have space that isn't being utilized at certain peak hours, why not also look into using that as another venue? And then knowing that, you know, the more central of all of the courts availabilities are Neyland and then Burgess, wondering if Burgess would be the next, I think geographically next central area, wondering if we can dedicate more space for pickleball in that one. That would be the next kind of central one from the other, you know, courts. And then just curious about the non-mentioned courts. Are those just not being utilized at all? Or, you know, I know it's far to go all the way to La Entrada to, you know, where I am at Kelly Park. Just curious, are those not even utilized? So maybe thinking about what we can do with those facilities, and if they're not being utilized for tennis or pickleball. I don't know, just curious. We have all of these different facilities, but if they're not being utilized what they're meant to be, you know, is there a way to compromise and have dedicated space, another central or new, you know, wondering what happened with the Kelly Park. I'm not familiar with the pilot with that, knowing that I know it's only on one side of Menlo Park. So is La Entrada. So as a compromise, you know, one side has more dedicated space for one type of activity and another, so that you could still have the community. Because I get that pickleballers want to have a more social, centralized location. Tennis could be social and or a more one-on-one, two-on-two kind of. So regardless, we're exercising, we're using our facilities. So why, you know, trying to find a way that we can all have access, better access, and also maybe figuring out why there's other unauthorized usage. That could be another short-term solution as well.
Well said, Maren. Commissioner Joshua.
I have two questions. Neyland Park, is that going to be a permanent conversion, or is it just a temporary conversion and can be converted back to tennis at some point in the future? First question. Second question, Willow, the two tennis courts there, are those two tennis courts any part of that space going to be used for pickleball? Or are you talking about using the existing basketball area for pickleball?
I can fill those really quickly. So the proposal would be a temporary conversion of courts 1 and 2 to pickleball at Neyland Park. That would involve laying down stripes in the pattern that was shown in the presentation and in the report. I think there were some comments about, you know, maybe retaining the tennis nets would be helpful to support the Hillview tennis program. I think that's probably feasible. We'd have to look at that, but just looking at the layout, that's probably feasible. And then your second question was about at Willow Oaks, the planned purpose-built pickleball courts. There's a couple of possible locations where the new pickleball courts would go. One could be at the basketball court where that's located now. And another could be at the kind of front end of the park where currently there's like a little hilly grass and some trees and a sculpture. And the city council is going to be looking at those plans on November 1st. But they would not convert any of the existing tennis courts. It would
What
be
would the timeline for bringing those permanent courts online?
at Willow Oaks Park. The construction would begin in early 2023 and be completed by the end of the year, early 2024. Because it includes a bunch of other stuff like new public restrooms and so on in the park.
Thank you.
Commissioner Brosnan. You're muted.
I was trying to unmute Rondell's picture. So, okay, thanks. What I'm hearing are that there are a lot of people who play tennis and pickleball and love both, that there's a real social aspect to pickleball. It's very inviting and inclusive, which I love. It seems like since I've joined the Parks and Recreation Commission, I hear about pickleball everywhere. I think there's even a cable channel that runs pickleball 24 hours a day. And I notice, I'm aware of it in everyday culture now. I was trying to look back at some old minutes from a previous meeting, a couple of previous meetings around the time that I joined a couple of years ago. When I joined the PRC, there was a discussion about access to tennis courts. And I was trying to find the minutes from that, unsuccessfully. So maybe someone can refresh the memory there about how that was resolved. There were issues, I think, if I recall correctly, with the fees and keys and the wait times for tennis players. And so I don't recall what the outcome of that was, if that was resolved somehow. Secondly, I think someone had, I think Prescott had mentioned that in an email, he quoted Jennifer as saying that there had not been any surveys done to measure the number of pickleball versus tennis players, or maybe, maybe there's a third category, which is both, those who play both. And thirdly, I just want, there was another meeting, several meetings back, where one of our previous commissioners, Commissioner Thomas, presented something around the noise of the pickleball at Neyland. And he actually went and recorded some of the audio and played it back for us and compared that against the tennis audio. And it was a bit higher. And I think we had a member of the community who lives right along that alley near Court 5, who mentioned that it was quite noisy. And just for comparison, I live about, conservatively, I live about 1,000 feet away from these courts. And with the window open, I can hear. To be honest, I can't tell if it's tennis or pickle balls that are audible, but from 1,000 feet away, I can hear the sound from the courts. It's not bothersome at all. But I would imagine that if I were 100 feet away, that would be much louder. So I wonder what the consideration is that we're giving to the residents, even if we're moving away from Court 5, we're moving to Court 1 and 2, there's still residents that are within the same or similar distance to those courts, and how is that going to affect them? And there was one of the callers, I think it was the second or third, and apologies, I don't remember her name, but she cited that there were other communities, other cities that had done studies and built their pickleball courts in areas where the location is further away from residences, and suggested that the area around in Burgess Park, where there are some basketball courts, could be a possible candidate for that location, which seems to make sense because that butts up against a rail, a train line, right? So there's something else that's going to be noisier, those are some points and questions that I have. I think there's probably a way to compromise and come up with a solution that works for all. And I don't necessarily think that we need to look at converting necessarily converting courts, but what about expanding and building new courts? Thank you.
Commissioner Terrio.
Thank you. Just a couple things to add. I agree with a lot of what Commissioner Brosnan just shared. It sounds like to me there's a huge need and desire for the expansion of pickleball, especially in the immediate while we're waiting on like pickleball only courts. And it sounds like the community wants them to be centrally located. So I think it makes sense to expand at Neelon. I wonder, I think the one point that I guess is kind of like something to consider is I wonder if we can address the concerns of the tennis community by looking at the reservation system to make it potentially easier to reserve tennis courts, to look at the concerns that they have about private lessons taking up time there, so that hopefully the tennis community doesn't have to drive around to multiple tennis courts to find a space to play. So that was the one thing I wanted to share.
Thank you. I think too that the comments that were made about the Hillview tennis team are quite valid, and that we should take that into consideration as well.
Well, I think if we keep the tennis nets up, that should solve that problem.
So if I may, through the chair, first of all, I just want to express a lot of gratitude for all of the conversation this evening. And I think as Commissioner Deepam pointed out, this has been an extended conversation over a couple of years, and it's progressed to a kind of a key point here where the city is poised to actually construct some purpose-built pickleball courts at Willow Oaks, which is the next opportunity. But there is this current desire and need for some additional space for the pickleball community. And because of the social nature of the game, that kind of led to the recommendation to focus on Neelon Park for the remainder of the pilot period, which is recommended here to run through June. And again, a trial period, and to really evaluate what those impacts might be, and to maybe definitely implement some of the mitigating solutions that have been mentioned that staff's already been looking at. For example, soundproofing the pickleball courts by hanging some material that can kind of help dampen that sound. I think the Hillview tennis team usage can probably be addressed by just retaining a dual use capability on courts 1 and 2, and then during the time the team is active, kind of figuring that out through scheduling, and kind of focusing in on what are some opportunities in other parks, and we would need to go back to the Parks and Recreation Facilities Master Plan and really plug pickleball in, because it's just not there at this time. But the Parks and Recreation Facilities Master Plan is the guiding document for capital improvements for recreation facilities. And so, I think we've arrived at the point where it needs to be plugged in. So we would need some time in order to probably do like an addendum to the Parks and Recreation Facilities Master Plan to accommodate pickleball and kind of get it into the mix there. And also we have some other new developments, like with the Menlo Park Community Campus project now under construction in Bellhaven. It makes sense to revisit the plan. So that's kind of how we've sort of arrived at this point of, well, there's this kind of short-term temporary fix that can happen very soon, almost immediately, just in the time it would take to put the stripes down on the court, understanding that that's probably not the permanent solution, but it does sort of satisfy an immediate need, while also providing the opportunity to collect some more data about the impacts, and in particular, some additional engagement from the tennis community. And I do want to really express a lot of gratitude that we're hearing from tennis players now. This, I believe, is the first meeting where we've had a pretty, like a substantial kind of voice from the tennis community in the conversations. So I would say a little more time to kind of continue that conversation and I think arrive at the win-win that I think everyone's looking for here. So with that, if the commission is kind of in a place to make a recommendation, that would be appreciated. It's not necessary, but that would just help the effort, I think.
Sean, may I suggest that as part of this, as you say, there's a long term and a short term, and I get the need for the short term. But if the conversation does not include some of the comments that I read, which are that the private instruction seem to be taking up a lot of the tennis court use, and if we don't address that at the same time with the Hillview thing as well, I think that we're going in the wrong direction. I think that we need to address that at the same time, and in my mind, that's the only way to make this short-term thing work.
That certainly could be something that's kind of added into the recommendation. I mean, it's certainly something that can be operationalized, I think. So if maybe the chair, if another commissioner is amenable to kind of making a recommendation with that additional add-on to it, I think from the staff perspective, that's doable.
Okay, and so do we craft that language specifically in the recommendation? What would be the next move in that regard?
My suggestion would be, because the recommendation had like 7, 8 parts to it, to maybe kind of use verbiage along this line, which is the key points are to extend the pilot program through June so that all that additional analysis can happen, and then expanding its scope as outlined here with the additional focus on the private instruction and that impact on tennis, and make sure that we're addressing that as part of it.
Can you show us the language about expanding the scope? Extending the pilot is a no-brainer in my mind, but expanding the scope, okay, so that
Right.
specifically 1 and 2 into 6 pickleball courts. That's the
Those
specific.
are the key ones here, are moving the pickleball courts from court number 5 to court 1 and 2 at Nealon, and they're at the same time going to 6 pickleball courts within that space, and reverting court number 5 back to tennis. So there's that. Then obviously there's the construction of the 3 new pickleball courts at Willow Oaks, but also to focus in on the Parks and Recreation Facilities master plan and do the analysis and develop the estimated costs and timelines for potentially building more pickleball courts, which we've heard a lot about. That needs to be plugged into the master plan. So that would be another part of the recommendation. And that would be work that would involve the Parks and Recreation Commission over the next 8 months. And then to look at the fees, because currently there is a pretty substantial difference that a few commenters here have noticed, which is that pickleball currently there are no fees, tennis there are fees. And so the question is, I mean, that's a pretty big difference. So is there something that we should do to resolve that, whether by implementing pickleball fees or potentially eliminating tennis fees or some other combination? But all of that would require, some analysis and some work with the commission, and it ultimately does need city council approval. And so those were the kind of the main components that are sort of, we attempted to just sort of summarize by saying expanding the scope per those next steps. And then adding in the instruction, I think, would be the other part. I'm sorry, the impacts of private instruction, right?
As Peter suggested, the extending the pilot to include Kelly seems to make no sense to the pickleballers, right? It all needs to be in one place, or the other things don't make a difference, right? So whether it's Kelly or whether it's Burgess or whether it's Willow Oaks or whether it's La Entrada, none of that is of interest because it all has to be at Nealon. So what's the point of expanding it at Kelly?
Well, there's no cost
Well, and it's already at Kelly, right?
Yeah.
So that was the first court that was the pilot started. And the reason that court was selected was when we did the tennis usage survey in 2021, it was found that that was by far the least used court. So it was, but for tennis, that is. So it was, fairly straightforward to say, well, hey, let's start it there because we know there's going to be very little impact to tennis players. We can just do it. And that was the request to just do it and get it done. So
And
that's
are we monitoring?
Mark, just to let you know, nobody uses those Kelly courts, those Kelly Park courts. And so, sometimes pickleball players do use those courts and just go and play as a foursome or whatever, but there's no impact on tennis at all at Kelly Park. So it's like, why not just keep the lines there?
I see. Okay. So other commissioners have brought this up. Is there any point in having a discussion about expanding something temporary at Burgess or expanding something at Willow Oaks temporarily? Is there any point in having that discussion?
Are you asking me or Sean?
I'm asking any of the commissioners how they feel. I mean,
well, my answer, my answer, it doesn't really work. And I can't imagine tennis players would be excited about that option, either, because then it affects, their tennis play over there. So, but as far as pickleball goes, yeah, I mean, like Sean mentioned, it is the whole social aspect of having, the courts in one central location. As far as that's just how the sport is conducted.
Well, I can say that as a tennis player, I hate everybody that I play with. So yes, there's no social aspect there. Commissioner Brosnan.
Oh, well, I think it's sort of worded in there already to investigate that further. Is that right?
Yeah, like item
Number
five,
five.
item 5 here really gets at, and this would be more focused on like the purpose built, because I think that's the ideal, right? Is to have purpose built dedicated courts, and looking at all the different locations as part of that, because during the pilot phase, we're trying some things, testing them, but it's arrived at the point where like we need to do a like full blown look at this plugged into the rest of the city's facilities through the master plan. So yes, number 5 I think captures it.
Sean, I have one clarifying question. Again, just trying to figure this thing out. So when you say, I get it on tennis courts 1 and 2, but when you say deconstruct court 5, what does that entail? Basically just taking the pickleball courts off there, or are you going to eliminate the lines?
I think during the pilot phase, we would be careful not to like pull up the lines unnecessarily until the pilot is done. But I think saying, reverting that court to access for tennis players, just to minimize the number of courts that they're losing there.
Right.
Because the tennis lines are still there, right?
Yeah. And, if we were to do something to accommodate Hillview in those months that Derek Shirley mentioned, then, one possibility would be to have courts 1, 2, 3, and 4, for Hillview, and then during certain times have court 5 for pickleball while Hillview's using those 4 tennis courts, just to kind of solve that problem.
Yeah, it's certainly one way that seems like it would work. Take a conversation with the Hillview team, but at first glance, it does look like a possible solution. It looks like Commissioner Joshua's hand is up.
Yes. Has there been any thought to what happens after the pilot program?
A few things that we're hoping to achieve by the end of the pilot program would be, one is to revisit the Parks and Recreation Facilities Master Plan and probably do some kind of addendum to it to plug the pickleball into it. The second would be to do a more deep analysis of what is the solution on the fees, because right now the current structure is, doesn't make sense to have tennis pay, pickleball not, but there's logistical issues with anyway. So there's that, the other piece. And then a third piece would be really looking at what is the impact on tennis players, in particular at Nealon. And especially now that it does appear that the tennis community is getting more deeply engaged in this conversation. And so we'd want to like analyze that. So at the end of the pilot period, to have recommendations for a more permanent kind of approach to pickleball and tennis citywide that also has run through that master plan update. The city council has had a chance to weigh in particular in the context of the fees.
The earliest possibility of having a permanent pickleball location appears to be Willow, and you're at the end of 2024 for that.
For purpose-built pickleball, yes. Certainly like the conversions can happen a lot.
It's an expensive proposition, and you need the space to do it.
Yes, it is not inexpensive.
And you don't have the money to do it.
It's all a matter of priorities, right? And that's where I think the master plan process is just really essential.
The work that's been done in Willow to create the permanent pickleball facility, that's in the master plan right now.
That is not specifically in the master plan. What's in the master plan is that Willow Oaks Park was slated for a really extensive renovation. New public restrooms where none exist currently, redoing the dog parks in a very substantial way, redoing the playground, reorienting the fencing, widening the path. And so the pickleball courts it was possible to kind of, shoehorn them in there because the project was kind of already going and on tap.
Okay.
Commissioner Brosnan.
I just wanted to ask, do we need to sort of specifically call out that we'll find some sort of temporary solution for the Hillview players?
You certainly could include that for sure. If that's, you could make that part of a motion.
We're having a conversation about it here, so it's clear, but once this goes to, city council, it would be off the radar if it's not specifically sort of called out that that's a consideration. And even if it's a simple solution, like, putting a net up, I think it's something we could add here.
Commissioner Joshua, your hand is still up. Do you have more comments? No. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a problem to accommodate the Hillview, for their hours that they need the courts from 3 to 6 or whatever it is.
So if we're done with the discussion, does someone want to make a motion to recommend this specific proposal?
Yeah, I recommend it.
And is there a second to that recommendation?
I'll second it.
Okay.
A point of clarification, though. I just want to make absolutely clear what Commissioner Diepenbrock moved, and I think I just heard Commissioner Joshua second, is that it's this staff recommendation plus looking at the potentially additional mitigation of impacts to tennis drop-in players by looking at private instruction and maybe limiting that at Nealon to give the drop-in tennis players more room, and then also to ensure that the needs of the Hillview Middle School tennis team are met adequately at Nealon Park. So it's the maker of the motion and the seconder was that assumed that that's part of it. So that would be
yes.
Peter and Peter. Yeah.
I would like to suggest that part of the language too is to look at expansion into temporary expansion into other parks at this point as well.
So I believe the protocol with Robert's rules would be to check with the maker of the motion, which was Diepenbrock, and the seconder if they're amenable to that.
Okay.
I think if you start to look at other parks or other facilities for pickleball, like the comment has been made, it's because of the social nature of it there's no benefit to it?
Well, I will add though, and I think this was raised earlier, it might not be necessary to make that a separate add-on because next step number 5 here does kind of capture that in the original recommendation, which is to analyze the needs, develop estimated costs for potentially additional courts in other city parks. So, you know, I feel like that does capture it. So it's already covered. It's looking at it and we'll make an analysis.
And Sean, as you're writing this, are we going to make the recommendation for Hillview that we put the tennis nets back up when their season starts, whenever it starts, or what do you want to, what kind of wording do you want to do on that?
Great. Maybe if it works for everybody through the chair, I'll just try to capture it once for everybody. What I'm kind of hearing was cobbled together here, which was to recommend continuing the pickleball pilot program through June 30th of 2023 and expanding its scope as outlined in the other parts of this presentation. We just walked through those 7 numbered items, plus accommodate Hillview Middle School tennis team's needs at Nealon Park, and you know, through various ways we've talked about, but just accommodate that, and to evaluate options to lessen the impact on drop-in tennis players by potentially limiting or relocating private instruction at Nealon Park for tennis, that is. And then I think the third item was really about exploring other sites, but it's kind of already captured in next step number 5, so it doesn't need to be extra. So I think that covered it all.
Number 5 seems to mention the master plan, but that's a long-term solution.
Yes. So I mean, if this, I think there is a little distinction there, which is looking at more short-term options at other parks. So we could take that as an additional add-on to the recommendation if you want to make sure that that's made very, very clear.
Sean, I'm just trying to consider all the things that can happen, especially with, the comments and all of the observations made on the courts at Nealon. So again, just want to make sure we're clear and just trying to see what problems could come up. So if there's no, we do this, I got it, the recommendations were made, we do this, and there's nobody on court 5 playing tennis, can pickleball players go over there and play pickleball on the pickleball lines?
I think it might be best to answer that question at the end of the pilot period, so we can kind of see what the impacts of expanding the number of courts at Nealon, number of pickleball courts has, because that's the first step. And then, if at that time there's a desire to look at further expanding there by taking over court number 5 or something like that, I feel like that would be the time to have it, because we'll have had the benefit of the extended pilot period to kind of observe what's actually happening. So too soon to say, to commit to it now, I think would be a little premature.
Well, I mean, you're saying that these courts are going to be put in pretty quickly. So, the issue is going to come up as soon as those courts go up, right?
You mean with courts 1 and 2, right? So with those being converted to pickleball, that would make 6 total pickleball courts at Nealon, where currently there are 4.
Right. And let's say all those courts are full and there's nobody on court 5. I'm saying, couldn't pickleball players go play there? I mean,
I think the proposal would be to revert number 5 back to tennis, because I think we've heard from tennis players that there's some concern about, losing court space. So I think we'd want to be careful not to overcommit there before we've had the benefit of seeing through the rest of the pilot program. I mean, that would be my recommendation.
Yeah, so maybe it would just be a situation, if Hillview is using the courts or something like that, but okay.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Good.
So it does sound like the maker of the motion, sorry, Mark, I'll just jump in. Maker of the motion was okay with those three add-ons, right? The Hillview Middle School, private instruction, and potential temporary solutions at other locations. And the seconder also is okay with that. That would be Joshua. Okay, so I think we've got it. And I'm looking over to Ashley, we're all taking notes here, but I know Ashley's also taking the minutes.
I am taking notes, yes.
And you've got that, okay.
But I think we're
And we've got the
ready.
tape, so.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And the motion was quite long, so I think we're all on the same page with the motion is. So let's do a roll call vote. And Commissioner Joshua, how do you vote? Yes. Commissioner Terrio,
Yes.
Commissioner Bunyagit,
Yes.
and Chair Bryman,
No.
Commissioner Brosnan,
Yes.
Commissioner Diepenbrock.
Yes.
The motion passes with Chair Bryman dissenting.
Okay, on to the next. Where are we here? Dues, Parks and Rec. Oh, are we on E3? Is that it?
Yes, we are.
This is item E3 on the agenda. To establish a procedure for the annual selection of chair and vice chair. The Library and Community Service Director, Sean Reinhardt, will introduce the next item and establish procedures for the annual selection of chair and vice chair.
Thank you. I'll be really brief here. This is just a reminder what's in the staff report. Staff recommends that the commission follow the same procedure for a selection of chair and vice chair that the city council uses for mayor and vice mayor, which is basically it's like on rotation based on seniority. It's very straightforward. It's still subject to a vote of the commission each year, so you could vary from it. But the way it works for the mayor and vice mayor is that the longest serving member who has not yet served as the chair or mayor is selected as chair. And then if all eligible members have served as chair, then the member with the longest elapsed time since they last served as chair would then be selected. And then the next longest tenured becomes vice chair, and then they rotate into the chair role the following year. So just to kind of establish that rotation. So that's the recommendation. Because the commission votes to select the chair and vice chair, it would be appropriate for the commission to vote on this recommendation up or down, and staff will carry out whichever one that suits you best.
Thank you, Sean. Are there any public comments on this item?
At this time, if you'd like to make a public comment, please notify staff by using the raise hand feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you're dialing in, you can use star nine, to engage the raise hand function. And I do have one commenter. It's a phone number though, ending in 0828. If the commenter with the phone number ending in 0828 is still there, you are unmuted.
Hi, I was just going to give my recommendation also for pickleball. I'm a tennis and pickleball player. I just didn't get in on time, so that's okay.
Oh, okay. And what was your first and last name? Sorry.
Sorry, my first name is Janet and my last name is Hafner, and I'm in Menlo Park. I live in Menlo Park.
Thank you. Okay, if there's no other public comment at this time, we'll open it for the commission. And it looks like there's nobody else.
I just want to say that my feelings are not hurt, that none of the public seems to care about what goes on with us. They care. I'm sorry, no, I'm kidding. Any of the commissioners want to comment on this? I'm sorry, Commissioner Brosnan, yes.
Just briefly, I like the continuity with the city council process. So I think this is a good recommendation.
Agreed. I think it makes perfect sense. I'm not sure why it hadn't been done years ago, but anyway.
Does someone need, do we need a motion to approve this, or is it
I
just?
think, I think that would be preferable, since the chair and vice chair are selected by a vote. It makes sense for the procedure to be approved by a vote. Yeah.
Okay, do I have
I
a motion
motion.
to accept this and a second?
I'll motion.
And I'll second, if I'm able. Am I able?
I'm sorry, was that Mayron who made the thank you, Mayron. Okay. And so we'll put it to a roll call vote. I think I heard Mark give the second there, correct?
I did. If I'm allowed, I'll do it.
You can. Okay. Commissioner Joshua, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Terrio,
Yes.
Commissioner Bunyagit,
Yes.
Chair Bryman,
Yes.
and Commissioner Bronson.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Brosnan, excuse me, and Commissioner Diepenbrock.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to I guess moving on to item F, is that correct?
Yes, item F, and they're all kind of together. We do have one update on item F1, but otherwise there's no presentation.
Okay, and there is no presentation. Okay, so are we looking for public comment on this, even though we hybrid meetings and, got it. Okay, so this is pertaining to hybrid meetings between what, library and Parks and Rec, is that it?
Yeah, there's three informational items. You probably could take public comment on all three simultaneously. They're really just intended to transmit information. The first one is about the city is moving to hybrid advisory body meetings. And we're recommending that the commission start doing that in January, meeting in person, but with the option for zooming in for the public in particular. And also an attendance report, but we have a correction to it. The chart that went out with the report, some of the figures were incorrect. So we updated that. We'll just put that on the screen for a minute. And then the other is just the suggestion box feedback that has been received. And then the third one is the tentative agenda calendar. So we're happy to answer any questions about those, but we don't have any particular presentation, except if I may ask Ms. Walker, I believe she has the updated attendance chart. So if we could just get that on the screen.
I do.
Yeah, then it gets into the record. Because we failed to account for one of the meetings had been canceled. So attendance doesn't count for a canceled meeting, I think was the main change.
I'm sorry, are we looking at an attendance chart right now? Or
We are about to be, yeah.
okay,
Go.
She's pulling it up.
Sorry, it's opening. It's been a little slow lately. There we go.
You have a few programs open on your computer right now, Ashley?
I do. I do, just a couple. Let me try this again. Okay. All right, can you see the Parks and Recreation attendance count? It's a PDF. Looks
Yeah,
kind of
we're
like an
looking
Excel
at it.
spreadsheet. Okay,
Mhm.
perfect.
It's a bit small.
Ooh, let me see.
We can transmit this to the commissioners after the meeting, just as an update. And then this will be added to the minutes. But yeah, it looks like she can also blow it up a little bit here.
My Zoom controls are kind of blocking my ability to increase the screen size on this. I can just maybe scroll over, but it looks like when I maximize it, I can't control the zoom on it anymore. So, oops. it's not
That's all
very-
right. We can look up closely. That's good.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, we can email it out. And again, the main difference, I believe, was that we failed to account for the fact that the May meeting had been canceled.
And it will also be included in the minutes for next month's meeting. So if we, did you want to cover any part of it, Sean, or just wanted to take a look?
Mainly just to bring to attention the correction and make sure that everyone knows it's coming.
All right.
And are there any public comments on this?
At this time, if you'd like to make a public comment, please use the raise hand feature, or if you're dialing in, press *9. And not a lot of interest in this one either. No public comment on that.
Are there any commissioners that want to speak to this?
Just the
sorry,
last
me.
item, the agenda, tentative agenda going forward, December the 28th.
Yes, I'll put that on the screen. I did have it. I have it queued up here. Thank you for bringing that up, Commissioner Joshua. So looking at your tentative agenda calendar, a couple of things. Your regular meeting date would land in November. It would have been the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So typically that doesn't work for people, but I think what we've landed on is a joint meeting with the Library Commission focused on the Menlo Park Community Campus on the Wednesday after, which there happens to be 5 Wednesdays this coming November, so that's helpful. So looking to change that regular date to November 30th. And then in December, it lands, it's really tough to find an alternate Wednesday in December because the previous Wednesday is, both of those weeks are holidays for a lot of folks. It might be tough to get a quorum. So one option that has been exercised fairly regularly in the past was to simply cancel the December meeting. So we see a couple of heads nodding about that. So that's why we kind of left the agenda blank in the event that that's what the commission wants to do.
Does that have to be a motion as well?
According to the city clerk, it doesn't have to be a motion, but we would definitely want to make sure that the commission's all good with that before we issue the cancellation.
Okay, I'm okay with canceling December.
I'm fine with canceling.
Anybody opposed to canceling that meeting?
All right, consider that a consensus. And then, but the next meeting will be November 30th. Great, thanks. Was there anything else on this, Commissioner Joshua? It was just mainly that.
No, that was the only thing.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so I guess then we move to item G, commissioner reports. Does any of the commissioners have anything to report?
No.
Well, I do actually. I want to suggest that Rondell and I went to a Parks and Rec conference, if you will, in Burlingame. It was, when was it, Rondell? A couple of weeks ago?
Yeah,
you there still?
October 15th, Park and Rec Commissioners Workshop.
And I have to say that it was kind of inspirational, really. I mean, there were some great speakers there. They have a tremendous facility. And everyone got a chance to kind of share. And the main speaker was a guy who had been a Parks and Rec guy for Burlingame, then he became the city manager. And he was really all about, sort of caring and giving a damn, as it were. And I'm so glad that I went, not just because it was good lunch, but it was great. Rondell, we broke up into groups and discussed various items. And one of the questions when you came in was, I guess as a Parks and Rec commissioner, what keeps you up at night? And somebody just wrote one word and put it up on the board, and it was pickleball. So I thought that was funny. But it was, I'm really glad that I went. And I just want to suggest that if anybody has a chance to go to the next one, you might want to keep it in mind.
Yeah, thanks for attending that, Mark. It was really fun and, like you said, inspirational. So again, just a second, Mark, if you guys ever have the opportunity, once these commissioner workshops comes back around, I highly recommend that you attend. It's a great networking session, and just kind of understanding what other cities are working with or dealing with and other commissioners. It's a really great kind of forum for you all. So highly recommend it. And thanks again, Mark, for attending.
Yes,
Mark, when you say great facility, which facility is that? What is it?
I think it's the Burlingame City Center, I think but it's.
Okay, so it's right next to Washington Park there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's been newly built, basically.
Oh, man, it's stunning. It is stunning.
Okay.
I mean, I have a feeling that our community campus in Bellhaven will rival that, but it was, again, it was very special.
Nice.
Okay, if nobody else has anything to report, I suppose we're ready to adjourn. So it is, what time is it now? Is it midnight yet? No, it's 10 to 10 on the 26th of October, and we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Happy Halloween.
Good night, all.
Thanks, everyone. Night night.